Okay, thank you. So good evening, everyone, and welcome to this special council meeting, the West Lincoln Council. This is meeting number 13. Today is Monday, August 12th. So this is a different type of meeting tonight. So I'm going to read the notice to members of the public that we normally do not have to do. So all cell phones, pagers, and or PDAs are to be turned off or put on silent. Additionally, for your information, please be advised that this meeting will be live streamed as well as recorded and will be available on the township's website. So I'm first going to ask members of committee and council if there are any disclosures of pecuniary interest and or conflict of interest. And no one in chambers, and we do have Councillor Trombetta online, and Councillor Riley has sent his regrets for this evening, so I'm not seeing any. So this is an appeal hearing with respect to a notice to muzzle. So bylaw 2023-54, being a bylaw to provide for the licensing, control, and regulation of dogs, provides under Section 8 for individuals to petition council to appeal a muzzle order. So the purpose of this hearing is to provide all interested parties the opportunity to give evidence and cross-examine witnesses. Council shall deliberate the merits of the evidence presented and shall render its decision, which shall be final and binding. A written notice of the decision shall be sent to all parties if that's the decision of council at the end of this hearing. So first of all, I'm going to confirm that the notice of the hearing with respect to muzzling was dated August 1st, and a copy is in your agenda for members of council who have looked at that. Item number 4 on this special agenda calls for the information relating to the incident that is subject to the hearing details, and they are as follows. 4.1 states that the date of the incident was July 4th, 2024. 4.2 states that the appellant of the muzzle order is Dan Templeton. 4.3 tells us that Niagara SPCA and Humane Society will be represented by David Scanlon. And 4.4 actually identifies owners of victims' dogs, witness and or victim, and we now have Michael Cott and his son Trenton Cott. Item 5 provides a list of the evidence related to the incident that is subject of this hearing. So the documentation is as follows, and it's in everyone's package. The notice of the hearing was dated August 1st, 2024. There's a copy of the email dated July 11th, 2024, requesting a hearing with respect to a declaration of a vicious dog, notice to muzzle. There's a copy of Niagara SPCA and Humane Society occurrence report, investigation number 23685, issued by Niagara SPCA and the Humane Society. Caitlin Warren is the investigator. There's a copy of the muzzle order dated July 4th, 2024. There's a synopsis dated July 3rd, 2024. There's a will say statement of the Niagara SPCA Animal Service Officer David Scanlon. There are copies of photos after the attack, and there's a copy of the Township of West Lincoln bylaw 2023-54 relating to the muzzle order. So I'm now going to call on the David Scanlon from the Niagara SPCA Animal Service Officer with respect to his statement and the evidence. So is Mr. Scanlon here? And there's a presenter's chair there. If you'll come forward, Mr. Scanlon, please. There's a microphone there for you. We haven't had one of these for a while, and the last time that people were here for this, there was a podium. We no longer have the podium, so please be comfortable. So, go ahead, sir.
My name is David Scanlon. I'm an Animal Services Officer with the Niagara SPCA. So, I'm sorry. Where did you want me to start?
Just tell your story, please. Tell what happened as you reported it.
So I got a report of a dog bite that took place on July 3rd. The bite was of a child who was riding a bike down the road. The dog ran off the property, chasing this child and biting him in the lower leg. So on July 4th, I arrived at the residence of the accused in question, which would be Mr. Templeton. Sorry if I said that wrong. When I arrived, the three of his dogs were present. As I got into the driveway, He came out of his garage, he removed the 2 dogs and held the 1 dog that was in question. I asked him to remove it, and he did so. We had a conversation at that point regarding the situation as to why I was there. I had asked him if he was aware of why I was present, and he then started to explain to me what he felt his accounts were of the situation. He began to tell me that he was aware that his dog at times would run off the property chasing bicycles down the road. However, he wasn't aware of a bite that occurred at this time, nor did he believe a bite did occur. I informed him that I received evidence to the contrary of that. And as a result of his testimony to me at that point, or his accounts of the dog running after people previously on bikes, and the nature of this bite, I came to the conclusion that this dog is showing signs of herding mentality towards people. At that time, I decided to go with a muzzle order in order to keep that dog confined to the property, to ensure it doesn't happen again, essentially. So that is where we were at as far as that, or as far as the muzzle order goes.
Okay, so this is an opportunity for members of council. If you have a question for Mr. Scanlon at all, anything about so far that you want to investigate further? Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Thank you very much for coming. In your practice, in the background of these types of situations, are muzzle orders issued generally at a first offense, or is that like case-by-case scenario?
It's case-by-case scenario, but absolutely they are at times, depending on the situation.
And what would make the difference between, and through you, Mayor, what would make the difference between not issuing on the first offense versus issuing on the first offense? Just so I have an understanding.
Are you asking for an example as to what
Just wondering what the difference would be between not issuing on that first offense. Like, if it's your discretion, then perhaps there's maybe you could give me some understanding of how you make that decision.
I come into situations where I want to fix the problem, not necessarily put a financial burden on people, which would be the alternative course of action. So I was looking to, essentially, my objective was to fix the problem from ever happening again. And in order to have that happen, I mean, if the dog is confined to the property, it's not going to run after people again. It's not going to bite anybody. It seemed to me like it was a progressive pattern in this case, like, especially if the dog has been known to chase kids on bikes in the past. It seemed like a progressive kind of nature of the animal. So
Okay, that's fine. Thank
Yeah.
you very much. That's all I had to ask.
Anything? Councillor Rayner, go ahead, please.
Thank you. Through the mayor to Mr. Scanlon, what breed were these dogs?
this dog was, I believe, a Australian Shepherd type.
So it was a fairly large dog, over 100 pounds probably?
No, it's about a medium-sized dog. Yeah.
Okay, did you seen the individual that was bitten? Did you see the bite?
I received photos, yes. I didn't meet the person in the flesh, no.
Or did that gentleman who owned the dog see those photos?
The gentleman who owned the dogs?
Correct. Because he said he didn't believe you.
Right. I did not show him, no. I did not show him the photos.
Did you ask if the dogs have been up to date on their rabies shots?
I did.
So did he give you proof that they were properly vaccinated?
I did not receive any proof at that time, no.
So you weren't concerned possibly that could have been a rabbit dog and that kid could have been affected? Because if they do have rabies, it's incurable unless it's treated within a short period of time. There is no known cure for rabies.
Right. certainly that is a concern.
You don't know.
Upon initially interacting with Mr. Templeton, when we were discussing the bite, he did express to me that all of his dogs were up to date on their shots. So that it's not necessarily,
All the proof you need, that's just his word against whatever, right? You haven't not seen any documentation to substantiate that those dogs were properly vaccinated on a timely manner.
I did not know. I did not receive that.
That would concern me. You also, through Madam Chair, you also feel, he also admitted that those dogs at times do chase people down the road?
Yes.
And it didn't seem to be a concern to him that even chasing, I mean, a kid's going down the road on a bicycle and the dog chases you, the kid could go into the ditch and seriously hurt himself because they're scared to death of all of a sudden this dog running after him, but it didn't seem to bother him that his dogs do it on a frequent basis, so he never anticipated that there might be a problem. I'm confused because this to me is all leading to the obvious of what happened.
Right.
He did
So-
not give the, he thought it was perfectly acceptable for his dog to chase people down the road.
That is the impression I got.
So now I understand. The other question was the fact that you wanted the muzzle ordered in order to protect the situation. It's already happened once. You got proof of it happening, so I would absolutely support what you did, because why would you give the owner another chance when he seems perfectly acceptable, let the dogs run free, and you've already got evidence that the dog's already bitten. So obviously, the next time it's out there, the chances are the dog could bite again.
Right.
So to me, you acted within the grounds that you had the evidence for. The only thing that really concerns me is the status of the vaccinations of those dogs.
I feel like the nature of the bite wasn't necessarily in line with a rabid dog. It looked to be like a tag, like where the bite was, it's almost where a herding dog will nip at an animal when they're trying to herd them. So that is where my mind was during that initial phase. When I saw the bite, it was just clear as day to me. I felt like that was absolutely, it's the dog doing what it's inherently, and I don't want to say trained to do, but that's, what they're bred to do, so.
Yeah, it's just that rabies is a progression, and the animal
It is.
becomes more and more vicious with time. Then it starts to have saliva that you can really see. By that time, there is major brain damage, and they become extremely aggressive. Even if they're docile, they'll become extremely aggressive and dangerous.
You're right.
So you really don't know what stage that was at if that dog had rabies. It would have just been a very, very big concern for me to make sure that that child was okay.
Right.
But anyways, I appreciate what you've done, and based on what I've heard right now, I would think the dog would be prone to do it again, and you tried to prevent it from happening, and that's your job, so thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, so Counselor, the hearing does go on, and there will be another opportunity to hear more, so thank you for those comments. And so now I'm going to ask if there are any witnesses that wish to speak to Mr. Scanlon's statement. Would you come forward, please? State.
I'm not a witness, I'm actually just David's manager, and I just wanted to quickly speak to the question about the...
Okay, so it won't, I know this is really difficult, but you'd still need to come forward to the microphone or it won't be recorded. So even though we all can hear within here, it would be lost. So you can sit and use the same microphone if you would,
For sure.
please. Thank you. And again, explain who you are, please.
My
and-
name is Nina Trammell, I'm the Animal Services Manager for the
Thank-
Niagara SPCA.
Thank you, Nina. Okay, go ahead.
So I just wanted to speak to the gentleman's question through yourself, Mayor, regarding the rabies vaccination. So the rabies vaccination is actually a mandate through the Niagara region, their public health department. Once a bite is reported through the public health department, whether it be from a hospital, a doctor, or emergency clinic, sometimes people will will report on their own, or secondary, if it hasn't been reported, we will report it to the public health department. So it's their provincial mandate to check on the status of the vaccinations, which actually did happen. They did attend on Mr. Templeton's address, and they did confine the dog for 10 days. Because as we are aware, dogs with rabies, you only have a certain amount of time to address that. So that
Okay.
was taken care of.
Thank you. That's valuable information to add.
Thank you.
Okay. Counselor, go ahead.
Thank you for that information. But normally a dog is quarantined for 10 days if there's no evidence in documentation in writing that the dog has had a vaccine.
That's correct. But it's
So
sadly,
they had no proof then that the dog was vaccinated, they would not have quarantined that dog.
I can't really speak to the public health department, what their mandate is, because again, we don't enforce it. But the general rule of thumb is it is quarantined for 10 days. Why they make that decision, unfortunately, is on them. But
Yeah, it makes me feel uncomfortable because normally that's if the dog has, if there's no proof the dog was vaccinated in a timely manner, that's the precaution they take.
it's possible.
So-
But it also allows the time for the person who was bitten to seek proper medical services so they don't, I mean, it's called post-exposure, where if you don't receive vaccines within a proper amount of time, you can be vaccinated against it within an amount of time.
Okay, thank you both very much.
Thank you.
So we move on now. From the back, also a witness of some sort? And
Well,
are you wishing to speak to what Mr. Scanlon has
Yes.
told us? Okay, thank you
Yes.
then. Please tell us who you are as well, please.
sorry, Mary Templeton, I'm Dan's sister.
Okay, thank you.
When you said that you hadn't seen a picture, or you only saw a picture of this bite, pictures can be altered. So unless you saw that child,
Okay, excuse me just one
Right,
minute. So Mr. Templeton is the applicant, and he will have his opportunity to speak.
oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, well,
So-
listen, this is new to all of us. I
Oh,
think it was
okay.
about 6 years ago that we had one here.
Oh.
And I was not the mayor, so
Oh.
bear with us. We're working through the script appropriately. So
I
you,
just thought this was a question on him, why he wasn't.
no, he has stated that he didn't see the child and that photos were evident. That's all he stated. So
never
you
saw-
can't
Oh.
question him on that.
Okay,
Okay,
sorry, I apologize.
but we'll let Mr. Templeton have his turn too,
Okay.
so that's okay, thank you. Okay, so at some point in time, and I have a question, that in some point in time, the evidence did come out, and I don't know about the timing of that. Do you, Mr. Scanlon, know about the timing of the photos?
Oh, is this on? Sorry.
Yeah.
Well, the photos would have been given prior to my arrival on the 4th. And in this case, Mr. Cott? Mr. Cott gave it to me the same day he reported it, which was
Okay.
on the 3rd.
So the photos that were recent, they were current, it wasn't like they were taken several days later? Or-
No, those
Okay.
were current from.
Okay, and I only asked that because you said that you did not actually see the child,
Right.
right? So, okay,
Right.
thank you. Okay, anything further on that? And then, okay, so thank you for your time for now, and we're going to move on and give the applicant, Mr. Templeton, an opportunity to tell his side. So thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Scanlon. Okay, so is Mr. Templeton here?
Yes. This is Kelly, she's my partner, she's also.
I'm Chip's mom.
Your Honor. First of all, I want to just ask if everybody has these notes that have been sent through, right?
Council have all seen those
They
in your
have
package.
read
Mhm.
everything? Okay. So if you want to go ahead first.
This is, I've made notes and sent them to you, which you've probably read. I'm just going to say it out loud. On July,
Yeah, we'll turn the microphone to you. And perhaps you should state who you are.
I'm Kelly
please.
McCaffrey. I live at 9071 North Chippewa Road. I actually brought the puppy to our residence when he was 2 months old. And so I'm very familiar with his behaviors and personality and so on. On July 2nd at approximately 7 o'clock, Dan and I were returning from our nightly walk of our field with our two dogs, Cat and Puppy, Chip, the Australian Shepherd breed, caught sight of the boys on bicycles heading east on our road, North Chippewa. Chip started towards the boys, and Dan and I both yelled for Chip to stop and come home. Chip did return after a few minutes, and we immediately roped him. Within a half an hour, two pickup trucks aggressively drove into our driveway and began shouting. Upon hearing the voices raised, I came out to find out what was happening. Michael, the father of the boy, began shouting that our dog was out of control, needed to be contained and leashed, and that he had bitten his son. There were two boys standing outside the two pickup trucks, and Dennis asked if one of the boys there was bitten and if he could see the wound. The father just completely ignored Dan's request and continued to berate us about our wild dog. I tried to explain that I was sympathetic to the situation, but I was having a really hard time believing that our puppy had done this, and I didn't witness this accident. I asked for a picture or proof of the bite, and the other gentleman that was with Michael, not sure of his name, I think it's Brian, but I'm not quite sure, showed me an image on his cell phone of the bite. After a lot of yelling and raised voices, it was evident that we weren't going to agree, and Michael then stated that he would take care of this menace dog once and for all. I then told him to do what he felt he had to do and to leave and get off our property. During Michael's conversation, he stated that he used to train dogs for years, and it was obvious that our puppy was not at all trained. After the men had left, I was trying to analyze the conversation that had occurred. Taking into account that Michael may have had experience with dog training, I believe that it was consistent with Officer Scanlon that the most severe charge of the order to muzzle and refer our puppy as a dangerous dog be implemented. Officer Scanlon agreed without prejudice. I'm not saying this is at all minor. It's not. It's very upsetting to me because I have 3 children of my own, and I know I would be quite upset too if it had happened to mine. Officer Scanlon agreed without prejudice. We are questioning this decision as we believe that it was Michael's optimal goal. The delegation follows our puppy forever. He will require a dangerous dog license. He has to be microchipped, and he will have to forever be muzzled when he's outside. If there's any doubt in my mind that my dog Chip had deliberately chased the boy to end in an attack and a bite, I would have euthanized him right there. That's my honest feeling. I would have done that. The boy riding the bicycle stayed on his bike, not falling. He continued to pedal another 3 houses down a rural road, which is quite a distance, to the neighbor's house. The following day, we received a notice in our mailbox from the Niagara Health and Niagara Health and Emergency Services to initiate the 10-day confinement for the rabies. Now, I understand when David Scanlon was at our property, I wasn't present, but Dan had the vaccinations in his file and asked him if he wanted to see him, and he said it wasn't necessary. The public health inspector, Bajada, arrived at our home on July 5th to implement this 10-day confinement to end July 12th. She advised that she'd been in contact with Hillview Veterinarian Clinic to see if the puppy was up to date on his vaccinations. I have not read the inspector's report, but she even seemed a bit surprised that the order to muzzle and refer to him as a dangerous dog, she was just surprised at that order because normally, I don't know there's a lot of things that have changed when it comes to dogs and running at large and so on, and I understand that. But Chip was muzzled and leashed at her time of the visit, and he actually laid on his back in a submissive position while she patted him. That was a public health inspector. I have a written statement from our vet's office, which is available if you need to, or if you have it, I'm not sure. It's signed, and it states that Chip Templeton has never shown signs of aggression within the office setting, nor has he ever had to be muzzled during his visits. On July 4th, 2024, David Scanlon of the SPCA arrived at our home, ordered to muzzle dangerous dog, pursuant to the Corporation of the Township of West Lincoln bylaw 202354. It was Officer Scanlon's opinion, after only his investigations and interviews with the witnesses and the victim, that the charge was determined. Isn't it his duty to actually witness the dog's behaviors and make more of a unbiased decision? It's almost like Chip's guilty until we prove him innocent, and we're his advocates. I believe that this charge is extreme and is completely unfair based on hearsay and a few persons' account of the incident whom did not really witness the accident. Chip's a puppy and an extremely busy dog, for sure. His breed, Australian Shepherd, is known for his barking and his herding tendencies. Dan and I have been working diligently towards breaking him of his chasing habits, and I've been roping him if he doesn't respond. Chip is a work in progress, and it takes time and consistency to train an animal. He's 17 months old. On July 11th, 2024, Officer Scanlon arrived in our driveway to serve us an offense notice of $360 for failing to muzzle a dangerous dog on our property, which is a criminal offense, by the way. Our neighbor, Mark Moody, I'm not sure if he's here, at 9047 North Chippewa Road on July 8th, took 2 pictures of the road, or from the road, into our backyard area of our 3 dogs. He's suggesting that our puppy was outside, not leashed or muzzled, and reported this to Officer Scanlon. Officer Scanlon's remark to this text, email, I'm not sure what it was, "This is fantastic. Thank you very much." I believe that our neighbors are being unfair, and this incident was perpetuated into a complete witch hunt. We have since filed the ticket with the courts for appeal, as the photos clearly show that Clip is leashed and muzzled. We also have learned that Mark had accused us of having our puppy run at large behind Mark, which is the neighbor, Moody, behind his house without a leash or muzzle on, but unfortunately was unable to obtain pictures. This isn't his property. It's an open field, which we have permission to be on. Because this ticket has been filed with the courts, I don't know if it's even admissible for this hearing, but I just wanted to make note of it and bring it to your attention. The next thing I'd like to bring to your attention is 2 different scenarios of antagonizing our puppy. Mark and Tara Moody have a son that drives a gray SUV up and down our road daily. Once he reaches the edge of our driveway, he accelerates and spits up gravel to entice a dog chase. This started to happen last summer when Chip was 6 months old. We have asked the driver to slow down, and he has responded by flipping me the bird and continues to antagonize him. There's a speed limit sign posted on both sides of our property, which is 40 kilometers an hour. There is pictures available, and this vehicle is clearly in violation of that speed. The second scenario is a group of boys on their bicycles driving up and down our road. Once they are approaching our driveway, they shout, "Here he comes, boot it!" We've asked them to stop. Dan has specifically gone up to them and said, "Boys, please, just stop. Don't keep yelling at him. It's like a game to him. He's chasing you, and we don't want this to be a continual thing." After a bit of research and asking questions, Dan and I have found out that the Canadian Kennel Club will consider a first-time bite as an accident. This delegation of order to muzzle dangerous dog is a bit questionable. We believe that the game of chasing the boys on their bicycles has ended up in a very, very sad way. The momentum of Chip running and the boy pedaling his bike, I think, is the injury that happened. The boy responded by trying to kick the dog away, and the boy's leg and Chip's mouth collided, unfortunately ending up with a puncture wound. We have yet to see evidence of the hospital report and/or a note from the doctor.
Okay, thank you for that. Are there any questions for
Kelly?
the applicant? Counselor?
Thank you. The only thing, through to you, the only question I have is regards to the fact that you said that Mr. Scanlon was offered to see the vaccinated child.
Absolutely.
And did not want to see it.
No. And he wanted the dog removed from the garage. He didn't actually, the dog wasn't present during his conversation with Dan. He asked Dan to put him in the house. And like, I don't know, I'm not an SPA officer, but I would imagine that they would want to see their behaviors, whether they're aggressive, whether they're barking, whether they're, you know what I mean? Like,
Well, they respond, no, well.
they have their own rules, I get that, and I appreciate
Exactly.
that.
And so he responded to a call.
Okay.
So we won't dispute that. Thank you. Okay, thank you. So I have a question. Were you present through any of this?
Yes, we had just returned from a walk of our field, and Chip caught sight of the bikes and took off. I
Now
wasn't-
that, you talked about that bike, but even as I read the evidence, I'm confused.
Yes.
That time when you were walking back and you
Yes.
saw two boys, you said, on their bikes. That,
There was a group of boys, I'm not
okay,
quite
so
sure how
that
many.
doesn't seem to be the same time as the incident.
Yeah, it was that.
No, excuse me, just 1 second, because we will ask for witnesses as well to speak on behalf. So it sounds to me like there were two separate incidents, not that being the particular incident. As I read through the descriptors, it seemed to me that there were two separate incidents. The one where the boy was chased when he was on his own on his bike,
Yes?
and then the separate incident that you're referring to.
Yeah, it was a continual thing, and that was all
So it may have
last
been
summer.
continual in your mind, but we're just really looking at this specific
Okay, this
incident.
particular
Okay,
case,
okay,
I
thank
thought
you.
there was a group of boys myself, I'm
Okay.
sorry.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so are there any other questions for the applicants? Okay, so,
Madam Mayor, I have my hand up.
good, thank you, because I didn't notice. Thank you, Counselor, go ahead.
Let me take the reaction down here. I was just confused with the statement from the last speaker. She did mention that there's an appeal process that's happening, or there's a ticket that's in to dispute the manner. I'm just not sure on if I heard that correctly.
Okay, so this is the appeal of the muzzle order. This is the process. I think.
No, I understand-
I think
I understand
that there was
that.
a reference to something else as well, so we'll
And
look for a
that's what I-
response.
and that's what I'm asking. There was a reference to some sort of appeal to the process that came from the SPCA. I was confused on what she was saying. That's all, Madam Mayor, when I heard
Okay,
the conversation.
thank you, so we'll look for an explanation on that. Thanks, Counselor.
Okay, so, yes, we're here to appeal
The muzzle order.
the muzzle order.
Right.
For sure. But there was also,
Okay, I'll take over. There is evidence that was put into this package that was sent by Nina, which I have filed in the provincial courts because David, when he came and handed me a failure to muzzle order, I asked him, I says, what evidence do you have? He goes, oh, I have pictures. And I said to him, well, let's see the pictures. His response to me was, I can't do that. You have to go for an FOI.
FOI, yeah.
So when we put the package together and Barb sent it over to me, I phoned Barb and I said, Barb, the pictures of the muzzle order, failing to muzzle order, can't be put through to this because it's a total different thing from what we're dealing with, which is our muzzle. We're trying to have this abolished. So that's why it got a little confusing here. And I believe you guys still have the paperwork in front of you regarding the dog's pictures. There's 3 dogs, the Chihuahua, the Australian Shepherd, and the black and white. Do you have those pictures?
They were in our package. I don't
okay,
have
'cause
them on my screen.
That basically has been filed into court because I disagree with the pictures. And as I said, I tried getting Nina to give me the FOI, but it arrived in this package, which I was quite surprised that it was put into this package, what we're dealing with is the muzzle order here.
Okay,
Okay.
so I have a question specifically about the muzzle order, and that is, when you are told that the dog needs to be muzzled, even in that short time period, and so the pictures indicated that that wasn't so. And so I think that's why they were probably put there, because in spite of the fact that you're appealing it, that order was still in place.
Yes.
And the dogs were not. Do you have a fenced yard of any sort? I know that you're in the country, I know the area.
Yeah.
But is there any other way, other than leashing or muzzling your dog, to be able to confine that dog to your property?
We're looking into pricing and fencing, but right now, at present, there's no fence. It's an open 11.9 acre lot or field or home.
Okay, so it's open and there's no way to control the dog, so which is why the response would be what it was. I mean, you're going to have children on bikes. I think in time immemorial, dogs and kids, have teased each other with bikes and so on. The difference is in this case, we need to find out what actually happened that day.
Yep.
And so far, we've heard two sides and nobody actually witnessed it. So I think we're going to now look to see if there was anybody who actually saw what happened. Okay, so thank you for that. So I'm going to ask you then to leave your spots for now, please, and I'm going to ask if there's anyone here present who can speak to exactly what happened.
Excuse me, can I not finish what my statement's here?
I'm sorry, I thought that you were.
No, she was reading her side. I was just going to respond back to David's things. Okay, my name's Dan Templeton. My partner is Kelly McCaffrey. We purchased a parcel of land and dwelling in June 2022. We have approximately 11.9 acres of land. We back onto what is known as Mill Creek, 971 North Chippewa. Chip, the Australian Shepherd, arrived as a puppy on April the 16th, 2023. Regarding the officer known as David Sinlin, with the research I have done on officers of the SPCA, they're supposed to look at the dog closely and make a decision on what the dog is doing, not sitting in the vehicle from far and say, oh, he's a dangerous dog, muzzle him. He assumed just from what people told him. I asked David if he was related to the...
Mr. Templeton, we don't want you to disparage anyone, please. Just tell us the details of what happened without questioning somebody's character or any other motivation. We just need to know the facts of what happened in this situation.
This is what I'm trying to...
No, what you're doing is making it sound as if the officer did not do his duty.
Well, I feel he didn't.
Well, you can feel that way, but we can't open that up. That's not why we're here. We're here to discuss the dog and whether the dog needs to be muzzled because he may or may not have injured a child. And so, do you have something further in your statement that you want to do that is not being critical? I know it's a question because I know that it's a very emotional issue for you, but this is a hearing and we are trying to stick with the facts.
Yeah. So, again, as some of the questions or the statements that he made, is that I'm just kind of supporting myself on what he said compared to what I actually said.
Okay.
So, now I'm kind of lost here. The next day, Brian sent us another letter. Okay, well, the other thing is, I have a question and response. So that would be July 3rd. How could this guy know if the SPCA didn't even show up until the 4th, that there's a muzzle order on the dog already, and I haven't had anything put into my hands? Because he was saying that to Tara and Mark that there was a muzzle order put on the dog. If you see him unmuzzled or untethered, take pictures. And this was July the 3rd. David never showed up to my house until July the 4th to give me the order. Now, the other thing is the order was dated July the 4th.
So we have, sir, that the incident happened on July 4th.
No,
No.
it happened on the July 2nd.
Oh, okay.
That's
So
what the other
this
thing I
is-
was going to correct.
So this says it happened on July 4th, so it happened on July 2nd. Okay.
The order was given on July the 4th. The incident happened July the 2nd.
And there was an email from, I think it was Michael, or it could have been Brian, to Mark and Tara Moody, because they were concerned of the incident that happened.
So something has happened.
Yeah.
This is what we need to find out.
Yes.
An event occurred,
Yes,
the SPCA must have been called,
of course,
right?
Yes.
And so that set this in motion.
yes,
So what we need to find out is what happened.
yes.
And so we understand that it's your dog, and we all have dogs. We know that people care about their animals. And we certainly don't want to see something that happen unfairly. However, we do need to follow through on this and get our facts. So do you have any other details that are factual, Mr. Templeton, that you
Yes.
want to add?
The one question that David, or the statement that David mentioned. So I'll just respond to it. He was basically telling me that my dog wasn't controlled. When David arrived on July the 4th, approximately 3:30, yes, there was 3 dogs in my driveway on my property. As David mentioned, I did have the accused dog chipped by the collar, which had him controlled. Not having a struggle, as he said. The other 2 dogs were commanded to go into the garage, and they did, and I took Chip into the garage also with no resistance.
Okay, so may I ask then, in terms of questioning, why you felt the need to hold him by the collar and not the other 2 dogs when a stranger was coming into your property?
Because he's a puppy and he likes to go greet people.
Okay, so he's 17 months old, though, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I've asked a couple of questions. I think we're finished with that, and we will now look to see if we can find out what actually happened that day, please. Okay. And please, okay. Just
Okay.
one second, we have a counselor with another question before we do that.
I'm sorry, through you, Mayor, Mr. Templeton, correct?
Yep, Dan's fine.
I believe I see it in my package, however, I'm scanning through, can't see it right now, that there was a registration of some dog training that you have taken the dog to or have registered for the dog
Yes,
for.
we've-
Can you
we've-
update us on that?
Yeah, we have registered him with Townsend Dog Training. Again, there's a letter of reference from him, because he's met the dog on 2 different occasions. And he did write a letter. I believe you guys see, it's Townsend's Dog Training.
Yeah, the letter was in our package, yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, and he started, our first lesson was the 4th of August here. And then basically there's lessons, August 4th, 1 p.m. he showed up, lesson E-collar conditioning. Then we have Sunday, August 18th, September 1st, September 15th, September 29th, lesson 5. So, and it's an E-command system.
The electronic thing?
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Okay, so we'll now, again, try to find out what actually happened. So, sir, you said that you'd come forward. I don't know who you are. Will you come forward and tell us, please? This has turned out to be much more complicated. Tell us who you are, please.
Hello, Council. My name is Michael Cott. I'm a resident of 9357 North Chippewa Road. My family and extended family lives on North Chippewa. We run a small to medium-sized beef and cash crop operation. I've lived on the road most of my life. As the previous presenter alluded to, my family did have a kennel for well over 30 years, a licensed kennel within West Lincoln. Do have a lot of experience with dogs, and in this case, I would just like to stick to the absolute facts. I do not want to embellish, contrary to what the people suggested. This is not a witch hunt. Let's just get to the facts. This was, I warned during the day of that this would, proceed to other to other issues after we visited the hospital with my son. But I will say that my son is a very strong boy. He's a farm boy. If you can imagine, he's 200 plus pounds, 15 years old, hockey player here with West Niagara, and he does not get taken down very easily. So he's not one that would fall off his bike if approached by a dog. Contrary to what the previous speaker said, he was by himself the day of the presumed the incident. While I was not a witness, the only true witness to the incident is the victim, who's not here today with us. Unfortunately, he is 15 years old. I would not want to put him in front of this audience at this time. I don't think that is fair to subject that individual to this case. I do feel for the plaintiffs. I am sympathetic to dog owners, having trained with dogs and been with dogs almost my whole life. This is a tragic incident, but it was the bite in question at the point that it happened. I was under the impression, and I will let one of our neighbors, again, let's separate the facts. I'm not here to comment on the failure to muzzle complaint. I'm only here to talk about the incident that happened, which led to the charges. Okay, so I do not travel down that end of the road very often. We are on the opposite end of North Chippewa, away from the neighbor in question. Saying that on the day of, Trenton, and I'll read his exact statement to the committee, or to the council. Hang on. I was riding my bike down the road to meet my friend for baseball practice. When I was passing the house on North Chippewa, the dog came out running after me for about 15 yards and bit me while I was still pedaling to get away from it. End quote. I will comment, he did not kick at the dog or provoke the dog or yell at the dog in any manner, okay? I want to stress that. If I found out that he did, we likely wouldn't be here. Start quote again. I kept pedaling to my friend's house, 3 houses down, and they helped me and called my dad to clean the blood off me. That was end of statement.
So Mr. Cott, do you know when the photos were taken? Were they taken that day?
Yes, the photos were taken when I arrived at his friend's house, at the Simonex house, three doors down. I was told that it took a fair amount of time to stop the bleeding. I've seen dog bites in my lifetime, and in this case, from my semi-professional opinion, I would rate it as a pretty severe puncture bite. In the past, we've been witness to we put down dogs that have done that severe of a bite in the past. It's unfortunate, but it does happen. The bite was deep. There was a fair amount of bruising afterwards. There was a lot of emotion afterwards when we approached the owners. When Brian and I headed over immediately after, this was about approximately 25 minutes after the incident actually happened. It was difficult to communicate. Contrary to what the previous speakers stated, my son did not get out of the truck. He did stay in my truck in the driveway, too afraid to get out, obviously, just because of the dog. His friends were there. Maybe they're referencing the other kids, but anyways, yeah, once the bleeding was stopped, I did tell them, I said, we have to go to the hospital, like, just the rabies, as it was previously discussed.
So that was my next question.
Yeah.
You did take him to the hospital and have it checked? Okay.
And I said to them, I said, do you know what this is going to lead to, right? Like, I said, this is going to go to public health, like this will unfold, like we don't have a choice, like this has to happen, right? I'm not willing to jeopardize my son, let alone any other 15-year-old's life because of the negligence caused by, a dog owner. So,
Thank you.
yeah, that's about it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Are there any other members present who wish to provide a statement regarding this? Okay, from the very back, and please come forward and tell us who you are. And whoever is speaking needs to have that microphone
All
sort
right,
of pointing their way.
I can begin, I think. Hi, I'm Brian Simonik. I live on North Chippewa Road. I'm neighbors with the Templetons. Yeah, that day, I assist coaching baseball with Mr. Cott's son, Trenton, the boy that was bitten, and my son. They're friends. Often we choose to bike ride to baseball practice. It's just down the road at Abingdon Park. So that particular day, my son and I were running a little bit late. We had plans to meet Trenton on Abingdon Road because they live on the west side of Abingdon. We're on the east. Unfortunately, we were running late, so Trenton decided he would bike to our house and meet us there. En route, as we left, I saw Trenton standing at our immediate neighbor's house on the road off of his bike, and I thought he was adjusting his pants. So he was wearing long leggings for baseball. I didn't think anything of it till I came closer, and he looked at me and my son Gavin, and he said, "I just got bitten by that dog down the road." And I said, "Pardon me?" He said, that dog just bit me." And I said, "Where did he bite you?" And he pointed down at his leg, and he's a very strong kid, and he couldn't pull his pant leg up. So I said, "We're gonna have to take a look at this." And anyway, he was wearing shorts underneath. He pulled his pants down, and as soon as he did, he saw the puncture wounds, and there was 2 puncture wounds. One fairly deep. The 2 were bleeding. There was a smaller scratch on the top, and then you can see bruising. So I immediately said, "You come to our house. We're going to clean you up. I need to call your dad." And that's what we did. We're just at the immediate neighbor's house. We came over. I explained to my wife what happened. Trenton started to cry, and my wife took him into the house and took a first aid kit and dressed his wounds while I called Trenton's dad, Mr. Cott. I let him know what had happened. I let him know that Trenton was fine. We cleaned up the wounds, but he would have to come down and pick him up. So he did. He came down and picked up Trenton, and from our house, we had driven to the Templeton's house. And when we got up on the driveway, there was an exchange as Mr. Cott described, and we made them aware. I had taken a picture of the leg, and I presented that picture to the Templetons on the driveway. I've been chased by the dog many times. I often pedal myself back from baseball because my son and his friends want to stay at the Ball Diamond and hang out a little bit longer. I'm almost a 50-year-old man. I don't entice dogs. I have no joy in poking at dogs, but I have been chased on a few occasions where the dog is right by my ankles chasing me home. And quite often, I've been chased in the car.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions from members of council? Councilor Rayner.
Thank you. Do you feel uncomfortable yourself when you go by? Do you anticipate the dog coming up? Do you get nervous? Does it make you feel uneasy just to go by there unless you're in your own vehicle?
I grew up in the country. I've been chased by dogs as a child many times. In my vehicle, of course, there's the armor around me. I don't like the fact that the dog chases me. It makes my parents and my in-laws very uncomfortable. They're older, it scares them. We've had guests come to our house who have been scared because the dog runs out towards the car. And the first time it actually bothered me was when I was on my bicycle coming back from the park, and he got very close to my ankles. And when I came home, I talked to my wife about it. And she had said she had some correspondence with the neighbors about the dog. Because my next concern was they're, I'm going to say, relatively new neighbors in the neighborhood. Until this incident happened, I hadn't had any correspondence with them. It was just waves as I was driving by. That was it. So when he chased me down the road, I wanted to go speak with them about it. But my wife had already spoken to them, so I'm not going to speak on her behalf. She can let you know what that conversation was.
So you felt uncomfortable, and it wasn't a surprise to you when you found out then that Trent was bitten, because based on what you've seen, it was inevitable it probably was going to happen? Or was this dog threatening in any way? Was he growling at you when you were going by? Or do you think he was just playing? Like they said, he's only 17 months old. To him, it could be a game. Or did you perceive that wasn't a game, it was a threat?
I wasn't surprised that it had happened. I was disappointed that it happened. I was disappointed that that behavior wasn't dealt with sooner, because it was ongoing for such a long time. As far as the mentality of the dog, I'm not going to speak towards the mentality, whether he was playing or whether he was aggressive. I find his behavior aggressive. I find chasing cars, chasing people on bikes, getting that close to their legs, barking the entire time. Right? It wasn't just running, it's barking, and I find that more aggressive than playful from my experience with dogs. But
that was an important part. You didn't mention the barking, but it was constantly barking while it was going after the...
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for coming forward. I'm going to make one last call out for any members of the public who are here that might wish to speak on this before we give both the appellant and Mr. Scanlon their opportunity for closing remarks.
I just have a question of clarification. So we've ascertained from all the evidence that on July the 2nd this incident occurred. It was reported on July the 4th. SPCA, came out on July the 4th, that's correct. And on July the 8th, Mark Moody saw the dog unmuzzled running down the road again. So we're talking strictly about the bite that occurred on July the 2nd,
Exactly.
right? Okay. There seems to be a lot of evidence about these other issues that are peripheral to what it is that we must actually adjudicate on this evening.
Exactly. We
Okay.
need to be just looking at, and that's why finally we got to the
I wanted to sum up
the
where
facts,
we
so
were
thank you
coming.
so much for that, okay. So there is an opportunity now, before we go into closed session briefly, to discuss this a little bit further in close. So there's a presentation of the summary arguments. So a couple of minutes each for Mr. Scanlon and for Mr. Templeton to provide some final remarks before we deliberate. Mr. Scanlon, is there anything further that you wish to sum up in terms of what you've said and what you've heard?
I guess in closing, I just want to say I felt I made the decision that was most appropriate in terms of public safety. And in the nature of the dog itself, I don't think it's necessarily an aggressive dog. I think it's serving its function, but against the wrong animals, which is people. So I felt like the muzzle order was the most concrete way to ensure public safety at this time.
Okay, thank you very much, sir.
Okay.
And Mr. Templeton, do you have any closing remarks that you'd like to make?
I do have a couple witnesses here that have been with this dog since day one. Are they able to speak?
I think we passed that opportunity, but so in terms of being with this dog, you mean in terms of training, sir, or just been around the dog?
Just knowing the dog's
Okay.
nature.
Okay, no. I think that opportunity has gone by with you and
Oh,
your
we missed
partner
that.
expressing all of that information.
Missed a few other notes. Now, the other thing is, I just want to...
But, you know, there were letters and things that were corroborating pieces of information that are in council's file, and photos of people with the dog and so on, so.
The other thing is, this is the Niagara Health report here. She arrived on July the 5th. Confinement ended July the 12th. She did also talk with Hillview Veterinarian Clinic. She didn't check off, yes, the animal is vaccinated against rabies, but I'm a dog owner, owned dogs a long time too, but biggest thing is rabies. And all my dogs, wherever they've been, have always been vaccinated and up to date. It's one of the things that we all want to make sure our dogs don't turn into an old yeller. Other than that, in conclusion, it's a matter of this incident. It sounds like the dog has run up and down the road. Yes, I'll admit to that. But to bite, it was the first incident, and I feel this muzzle order is a little heavy on him.
Okay.
Okay?
All right, thank you.
Thank you for your time.
So we do need a resolution, and Councillor Rayner, you have it, to go into closed session for a brief discussion among council. If you will do that, please.
Moved by myself that the next portion of this meeting be closed to the public to consider the following pursuant to Section 239, Section 2 of the Municipal Act 2001, 13.1, Acting Director of Legislative Services, Clerk Justin Palov, resolution regarding muzzle order. Applicable closed session exemptions, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administration tribunals affecting the municipality or local board. The Director of Legislative Services, Justin Palov, resolution regarding muzzle order resolution.
Okay, so someone to second going into closed session. Councillor Bradrick, thank you. And by hand, all those in favor of moving in. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're just going to move to the room across the hall very briefly and deliberate what we've heard, and we will be right back. So take a break. I know that for some of you, can I offer up your donuts? Councillor Bradrick, if you're hungry after sitting through this, help yourself. And And we're just going to turn to our clerk, who needed a moment to...
Can you hear me okay, Madam Mayor?
Oh, good, you are there. Thank you. Yes, we can.
Madam Mayor, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Counselor. Okay, so go ahead.
So coming out of closed session for the muzzle order appeal, in our bylaw, we have a provision which allows council to dictate that decision in immediately after the confidential session or within 10 days. That decision will come in 10 days, and there will be a motion coming before council right now that staff be to proceed as directed in closed session.
Okay, so you need a mover? Counselor Chichok, and a seconder. Counselor Rayner. And show of hands, or are you going to put that up? Just a show of hands, all those in favor? And Counselor Trombetta, are you in favor of that motion? I don't think he could hear me. We could hear him, but I don't think him. So we...
He said yes there.
I am in favor, yes.
Okay, thank you then. All right.
So that motion carried, and just for clarification to the public, so this decision will be mailed out to the appellant and to the applicant as well as to the SPCA within 10 days. It should be sometime this week that you will receive a letter with a decision made by council tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we will adjourn this hearing at the hour of 7:24 p.m. That ends that meeting, and we'll move on to this second portion of our meeting. So thank you, everyone. So thank you to those who have been waiting for a period of time for the meeting that was supposed to start earlier. We will give this a couple of minutes to clear and let people get out of the building and give an opportunity to switch over so that our meetings are separately recorded. Members of council, that gives you an opportunity to find the right agenda on your computers as well. So we're ready to go. Okay, so we're going to get started on the next meeting. Everybody ready? Okay, so I'm going to call the second meeting for this evening to order. This is, again, the West Lincoln Council meeting. It's all committees in council for the month of August. This is meeting number 14. So if you're able, please stand for the singing of O Canada. Tonight it's performed by Smithville Christian High School.
Oh,
Thank you. Please be seated. So I'd like to provide the following announcements prior to beginning this meeting. Comments from the public for a matter that are on the agenda may be provided in person by attending the meeting and advising the chair during the request to address an item on the agenda section of the agenda. Or 2, for individuals that are unable to attend a meeting in person, you may submit comments for matters that are on the agenda by either 1, emailing jpaylove@westlincoln.ca before 4:30 on the day of the meeting. Comments submitted will be considered as public information and be part of the public record, or alternatively by contacting the Clerk's Department to request a Zoom link to attend the meeting virtually. Tonight's council meeting will be live streamed as well as recorded and available on the township website. Before I go any further, I'll pass the, Councillor Riley has sent his regrets for this evening, and Councillor Trombetta is joining us on Zoom this evening. So we'll begin with the land acknowledgement statement. The Township of West Lincoln, being part of Niagara Region, is situated on treaty land. This land is steeped in the rich history of the First Nations, such as the Hattaway-Wendourong, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. There are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The Township of West Lincoln, as part of the Regional Municipality of Niagara, stands with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the stewardship of the lands on which we live. And Councillor Rayner, you have the opening petition for this evening.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. We meet to serve our community, to use our resources wisely and well, to represent all members of our community fairly, to make decisions that promote the common good. We recognize our responsibility to the past and the future and the rights and needs of both individuals and community. As trusted servants, may we act wisely and well.
Thank you, Councillor. So I'm going to ask members of committee, are there any changes in orders on the agenda? Okay. Seeing none, are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest and/or conflict of interest? And seeing none. Item number 6 on our agenda is a request to address items on the agenda. Requests to address items on the agenda are restricted to specific items as follows per section 6.7 of the procedural bylaw. 6.7 states that there shall be no comments from the public permitted at council unless A, a specific appointment has been scheduled, or B, an item is included under the other business, communications, or appointments section of the agenda and relates to a matter which would normally be dealt with at committee. Are there any members of the public present who wish to address a specific item on the agenda as permitted by section 6.7 of the procedural bylaw? And seeing none, Kevin, are there any online members who wish to?
Not seeing any, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, we do have several appointments and presentations this evening, and I do apologize for the delay. We really are mindful of the time that you've given us. However, we've learned a good lesson tonight, and that is if ever we have one of those hearings before us again, we need to allow much more time than we did for this evening. So we'll begin with Matt Campbell from Zelenka Priamo Limited. RIA request for extension on behalf of Brentwood Homes, Inc., a draft plan of condominium lands approval. So Matt, if you'll come forward to the presenter's chair, please. And welcome.
Thank you to Council. There you go. Thank you very much. So my name is Matt Campbell. I'm a partner with the land use planning firm Zelenka Priamo. We're here on behalf of our client, Brentwood Homes. And Brentwood is seeking an extension of the draft plan of condominium approval. There have been a couple of extensions already graciously granted by council, and our client is seeking an additional extension. Now, as outlined in the letter that appears later on in the agenda, as well as the staff report that appears later on the agenda, this is a complicated issue, but it's also very simple at the same time, depending on your perspective at how you look at it. So in a nutshell, our client is faced with economic conditions that are not satisfactory to their risk tolerance to proceed with the development. We've gone through the draft plan of condominium process. We've worked very well with staff in amending the draft plan conditions, and there are amended conditions that I'll get to in a moment that are very helpful in moving forward with the development. The issue that our client is facing is essentially the soft work, per se, for the development, all the approvals, it's already complete. We have a site plan, we have a draft plan of condominium, we have all the engineering, it's all complete. They essentially just need to pull the trigger to satisfy all of those conditions. And the consequence of satisfying those conditions is unfortunately something that their finances cannot tolerate, and they're not willing to tolerate that from a risk perspective. We understand that there's a high degree of housing in need, not only in the township of West Lincoln, but across the province as a whole. As a land use planning firm, we see that all the time. In the letter that I provided, I do note that while low-density housing has experienced a slowdown, and that's what this development is. It's essentially low-density housing. That has experienced a slowdown, but the offset on that is an increase in medium and high density. So unfortunately, this particular development is caught in the economic conditions, whereas it's not really affordable for the average person to purchase one of these units. It was when our client purchased this project in 2021. Unfortunately, economic conditions have changed such that it's not that affordable. Now, what we do see with the reduction of interest rates, which we hope will also come down, we think that our client is going to be able to execute on this project in the near future. So we respectfully request that Council grant an extension. Now, under the Planning Act, Council has the ability to grant an extension of up to 3 years. The staff report recommends 1 year, and certainly we'll leave that to Council to decide what is appropriate. The consequence of not granting this extension is it's not detrimental to the project. It just uses up resources in the future that have already been used. Our client would have to submit a new application, go through the planning process again, and that takes a long time. Typically, that would take around 1 to 3 years to be able to do that. Whereas we're hopeful that our client, if the draft plan approval is extended, we're hopeful that our client can execute on this project within the next year if interest rates continue to drop, which we hope that they will. So that is the presentation, just in a very, very brief summary. Again, this item comes up later on the agenda. I'm happy to answer any questions that that Council may have, and certainly encourage Council to move forward with a extension. Thank you very much.
Okay, so thank you, Matt. And in lieu of the time, and rather than taking questions now, are you staying for until the
Yes.
item comes up on the agenda?
Yes, absolutely.
Can we hold that and bring you back then if we need to?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you so very much.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so members of council will move on to our second presentation rather than asking questions. If you have questions later on when the item is on the agenda, then feel free to ask them then, please. Okay, so our second presentation this evening is Inspector Dave Gomez, Staff Sergeant Sarah Rose, Sergeant Carl Fittis, and Corporate Communications Manager Stephanie Sabarin. I see 3 people. I don't know who 3 we have here. I met Chief Forty, but the rest of you are all brand new to me. So welcome to West Lincoln. And I don't know who's speaking first or second. Okay. Yeah, Kevin's just getting that set up for you, I think. So again, thank you for your patience with us. We're happy to have you here this evening.
You're welcome. Is this on? You can hear me? Okay.
We can hear you.
I can hear me. Good evening, everyone. I'm Inspector Dave Gomez. I'm the 3-district commander working out of Welland, but with oversight over 8 district and 6 district in Port Colborne as well. I thank you for the opportunity to join you here this evening and to be able to share some insight into the Niagara Regional Police Service. I'm going to keep my comments very brief before turning over the presentation to Staff Sergeant Sarah Rose, who is your 8th District Commander here in West Lincoln, and also, as you would all know, covers Grimsby and Lincoln. I'm also joined by 8th District Sergeant Carl Fittis, and our Manager of Corporate Communications, Ms. Stephanie Sabarin, sitting here.
Good.
And with that, I'll pass it over to Sarah.
Thank you very much. Somebody controlling the slides, or will that be me? I can? Which key would I? Just over? Okay. Okay. Is it on? Thank you. Okay, again, thank you, Mayor and members of Council, for having us here today, for giving us the opportunity to speak. Simply put, here is our mission statement. The Niagara Regional Police is dedicated to serving and protecting residents and visitors within the regional municipality of Niagara. In partnership with the community, we shall provide quality policing services with integrity, diligence, and sensitivity. Here's a quick overview of our current organizational structure. Much like many large organizations, it shows the scope of the services and the areas of expertise within the Niagara Regional Police Service. From a uniform perspective, we have 772 sworn members as part of our authorized strength. On our civilian side, we have 321 members. So breaking down the organizational chart further, I wanted to give you a snapshot of the various police programs that we have here in Niagara, from executive services, district operations, which is our front line, as well as operational support services. So investigative services are resources above and beyond the number of specialty assigned patrol officers, and they are able to assist with more complex needs and investigations. Examples of these are our Special Victims Unit, domestic violence, child abuse, human trafficking, and fraud, which we'll speak a little bit later on in the presentation, as well as our emergency services, which includes our K-9, tactical officers, and traffic enforcement officers, to name a few. Most members of the public only see our frontline uniformed officers driving around within their communities and answering calls for service. But at any time, these specialty units can be deployed to assist where appropriate for that tailored response. So further, we also have our corporate services, technology services, and operational support in roles such as our 911 communications, the Real-Time Operations Center, and our court services. To demonstrate how all of these units can work together at any given point in time within our region, I'll use an example of a robbery with a firearm call. This is where a suspect has fled on foot. The call to police starts with our communications unit, where the 911 call is received, processed, and dispatched for a frontline response. Depending on the location of the robbery and the information available at the time, our Real-Time Operations Center will immediately look to access cameras available in the area. That frontline response, uniform response, is the initial emergency response. Officers will attend the scene, secure it, tend to any victims, ensure public safety, and look to locate the suspect. Our K-9 unit and our emergency task unit would then be activated due to the suspect fleeing and a mention of a firearm. Additional resources may be needed, and members of our traffic enforcement unit, for example, can be called upon to assist with the perimeter. District detectives or specialty detectives would be notified and would attend to investigate, interview, take statements, and canvass the area. Our forensic services unit would be called to process the scene, and any evidence would be retrieved. Our corporate communications would be looped in to ensure that media releases are prepared and would respond to any media queries. When arrest is made, that person would be taken into custody and brought to our central holding unit, where they would be processed by our special constables. There's definitely a lot of areas of policing behind the scenes, not to mention our mechanics, staff and fleet services, our IT personnel responsible for pretty much everything from phones to cameras to computers, our finance and human resources personnel, along with our career development, recruiting unit, and members of our training unit, which all help to support our visible response. So this is our statistical trends for the NRPS for our calls for service. So looking year over year, there is a constant increase for calls for service. However, in 2023 from 2022, we saw a slight decrease, which can be attributed to continued proactive community engagement and referrals to more appropriate response, such as our COAST or our MCERT, as well as community services for quality of life issues. So this slide speaks to the West Lincoln top calls for service. So year over year, we consistently see these areas as the main calls for service within West Lincoln. Motor vehicle collisions, impaired driving, theft, driving complaints, and fraud-related calls. And please note that the 2024 stats are year to date. So this slide is the Banker Education Initiative. So this initiative was developed in December of 2022 in response to multiple grandparent emergency scams out here in Grimsby and West Lincoln. Fraudsters would contact victims by telephone and provide a story that a family member is in custody and cash bail is required to assist with the release. Detectives from the Central Fraud Unit attended all financial institutions in the Grimsby area and met with branch managers to increase awareness of these scams. They provided information, documents, and encouraged managers to share with the frontline staff to question any large cash withdrawals, particularly with their elderly clients. The program was eventually extended to the entire Niagara region, and contact information was obtained from all the branch managers. The Central Fraud Unit maintains regular communication with the Niagara branch managers in a group email distribution, keeping them all informed on current fraud trends. So traffic and speed enforcement in West Lincoln. We have, in 2023, we had 254 provincial offenses notice issued relating to speed violations. Speed enforcement Project Speed Alert, which is a proactive patrol which focuses on rural areas. We have the collaborative partnership with the Niagara region for Vision Zero, which aims to make roads safer and eliminate injuries, fatalities across the Niagara region. And specifically out here, we have 2 community safety zones where we protect our most vulnerable members of the community. The John Calvin School on Station Street and Smithville Christian High School on Townline Road. So in addition, I would encourage anyone with specific concerns to utilize our traffic hotline, which will allow our traffic enforcement unit to conduct proactive patrols in areas of concern to address these issues by calling 289-248-1060 or by emailing them at trafficcomplaints@niagarapolice.ca. There's also an online form on the public website. So lastly, this is our crime prevention and community engagement. Officers assigned to 8 District West Lincoln area take part in several crime prevention and community engagement initiatives throughout the year. Officers regularly take part in the Lock It or Lose It campaign all year long, and in the warmer months they involve conducting parks and premise checks throughout the course of their night shifts in efforts to discourage disruptive loitering and vandalism in the parks within the town. We've also just completed the Faraday Bag campaign as well, which was highly successful in this area. So that's the presentation, so I'd be happy to take any questions if you have any.
Okay, thank you, Staff Sergeant Rose. So members, go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you through you, Mayor. Thank you very much for your presentation. I had 4 questions, 3 of which you answered during your presentation, so thank you very much. Sad to see that motor vehicle accidents and impaired are your number 1 and number 2 calls to our community. I guess I could ask if there is any discussion about increasing the opportunities for enforcement, speed enforcement, as well as ride checks in our community to help mitigate that as being our top 2.
I think that's back on. Thank you, through you, Mayor. Yes, our traffic unit does focus on the rural areas, as I said. So they do have ride checks throughout the region that have a schedule. It's obviously not publicized where they'll be, but they do come out to the rural areas. We have dedicated officers in our district that are highly motivated in traffic response. So when we get the complaints, they are definitely taken seriously and acted upon. So we do encourage the community to communicate to us where the issues and the areas of concern are to them, so we can take the time and specifically target those areas.
So thank you very much. And one of my questions that you really already answered was around how to report those things, and you had listed a phone number and as well as an email, and what was the third as well?
There's on our website, there's a form on the
Right.
public's, Niagara Regional Police public website, there's a form that they could, community members can complete.
And of course, if it's an emergency situation, then it would be 911.
Yes.
And people are encouraged to call that if they see somebody that's impaired, I'm sure.
Yes.
What about youth and vulnerable populations? I know you have the Lock It or Lose It campaign. Is there any education and outreach programs for that particular classification of our population?
We encourage the community to reach out. You can reach out directly to the district as well. We will attend any, there's some youth groups that we've attended to speak with. Any vulnerable communities, we're more than welcome any feedback on where we can reach these youth. I constantly encourage my members to stop and speak with the youth of the community. It also kind of puts the police in a positive light. We're not always in a negative. We're friendly, we will help, and really just to educate on what we can offer the youth of the communities. I think across the region, youth feel that there's not anywhere to go, so we can help. I know there's some churches and other community partners that engage youth, and we gladly come to speak about what we do and on how we do our business, but also how you can, if you want to become a police officer, then we give them the guidance on steps to take to become one of us in the role of a police officer. So through churches and if anybody has any ideas, I will gladly attend any community functions to speak with the youth.
Okay, that's great to know. Thank you very much. And one last question. What, if any, recommendations do you have to the public to use technology such as cameras to enhance their own safety on their property?
For majority of our investigations, we highly recommend keeping like some security cameras on your homes throughout the investigations. We depend on those ring cams, or if any CCTV from businesses. They're a huge benefit to the investigation and provide us with evidence. So I understand it's costly to have a ring camera or to get security systems on your property, but they do work, they do help, and they do further our investigations and right up through the court process, because if you have evidence and you can physically see the evidence, then it definitely will help any of our investigations. And it's also, we recommend it because it's just nice to know who's coming onto your property, right? It's if your Amazon packages or something else is getting delivered, it's nice to see who's coming to your door to drop the packages off, and or if things go missing, or somebody's going through the vehicles at night, it's nice to see, and we can trend through that. So if we know the neighborhoods that are getting hit, even if the doors are locked, we know that somebody's been in the area, and just to give you that little added security.
Great advice. Thank you very much for your report and the answers to my question.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further? Councillor Chichok.
Thank you. Could you please give us that number again? Not
The phone number?
911 one. It's 289.
Absolutely. 289.
Yes.
Where is it? 248 1060. And then the email is trafficcomplaints@niagarapolice.ca.
Thank you. I have heard nothing but good reports on the follow-up by the police. It's been a great time. There have been, unfortunately, a series of small thefts from around rural areas, but the part that was most surprising to the people who were affected was the fact that the follow-up by the police happened, and it happened quickly, and it continued to happen. So it gives the reassurance to the rural residents that you are there for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, and we couldn't make these responses without the community. We have a very positive relationship with our community, and we are very, very fortunate to have that relationship. I've been here since February, and I am shocked and awe of how your community supports one another and the police. So I'm very grateful for all the community members as well.
Thank you, Sergeant Rose.
Councillor Trombetta, did you have any questions?
Well, I do, Madam Mayor. It's more of a comment, and I just want to say, we hear the analysis
that the police department is giving us for, motor vehicle crashes, drunk driving, but we are getting a lot of thefts, Madam Mayor. We are getting a lot of complaints as counselors about the break-ins, not enough police presence, and I know the officer's stating that there's a number to call, or there's cameras to look at, but unfortunately that's always too late, and we're having nothing but a problem in our community. How do we provide more presence that we need is one which touches the border of Hamilton? Again, as counselors, we do feel it a bit, and no offense to the police officers presenting, but we do feel it a bit in the sense that, we're there and we have to discuss to the residents of their taxes, and we're not getting police presence, and, we're there at the doors and discussing these comments with them. How do we get more police presence in our wards, on all three of our wards, Madam Mayor? So, direct the question to the officer.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. We've heard your question. We'll let her answer.
Well, we've just been authorized for 4 more officers in the Grimsby detachment. So as the community grows, the region is listening, and we are working towards getting more officers on the road here. Our officers are throughout the day shift and the night shift. It's a very large area to cover. And I would love to have more officers up in the rural areas, but at this time, I have our authorized strength, and I'm pleased to announce that it's gone up 1. So we're trying to get out there. We're trying to, boots on the ground, and driving up and down the rural roads. But unfortunately, we don't know where the crime is going to happen. We can trend, and we try to the hot spots, we try to, get in those areas to mitigate any problems. The comment was a little bit broken up. I did hear something about Hamilton.
If I could just explain, the councillor's ward extends to the Hamilton border.
Okay, thank you.
And so that would be that problem.
Okay. No, I'm not sure if it's common knowledge. We do work very closely with the Hamilton Police Service. We work closely with their crime analysts to learn what their trends are, to who's coming into our area. It is a common theme that crime does happen here, and it happens in Hamilton as well. So we are able to make some arrests. Our detective office works very closely with them, and we have had success. And without those partnerships, we wouldn't be able to make the arrests. And I know we had a rash of break-and-enters at the beginning of the year up here, and our detectives were able to work with Hamilton and other surrounding services, and we were able to make a quick arrest. But I do understand the concern. But right now, our authorized strength in the area is what it is, and we just have to continue to get out there and be seen by the community and continue to make them feel safe. They are there, and if you ever need us, we will definitely, like I said, we'll go to the areas of concern if there's something specific. But I encourage my officers every day shift, night shift to drive around, meet with the community members, and just give that little bit of added personal touch to the job and ensure that they feel safe. But I do understand the concern of the councillor and his constituents.
Okay, so Councillor Rayner, go ahead.
Again, thank you for your
Madam Mayor, I wasn't finished, but...
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
That's
Well,
the difference when
Madam
you're
Mayor.
not here. We can't tell that. Okay, just 1 second. Councillor Rayner, Councillor Trombetta wasn't finished. Okay, go ahead, Councillor Trombetta.
Yes, Madam Mayor. So that the officer did state that she got the complement of 4 for Grimsby. And we used to have only 1. Are you telling me that we have more complement for West Lincoln? What is the amount that is dispatched for the area of West Lincoln?
So the number, sorry, through you, Mayor, the number is still the same, but our complement for the entire district has gone up per platoon. So we have 1 more per platoon, which once we were able to fill those positions, we'll be able to have more officers in Grimsby proper, I guess, as 8 district, I'll say. So yes, the officer that remains in West Lincoln is 1, with the backup coming from the different areas.
Okay. It just might, again, through Madam Mayor to the officer, I just still think it's still light for our area. And again, the pressure that we are getting is immense from our residents and constituents. Thank you for those comments.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Rayner, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. I spoke quite a while ago about this. I initiated that the police would come on a quarterly basis just to get an update on what we see in our community and how that can help you. And I'm glad to see that you guys are back again. But I thought we had upped the amount to 2 officers on each platoon that were going to be up in West Lincoln. And I thought there were 2 cruisers up here at all times in West Lincoln. You're telling me there's just 1? I thought for the longest time we've upped it to 2.
Carl?
Change of location. Go ahead.
Staff Sergeant or Sergeant?
Sorry, a little bit of back and forth.
That's
So
okay.
the minimum we would have on the road would be 5 during a day shift, and on the weekends during a night shift, it goes up to 6. Now, platoons can have more or less, say 7 or 8 officers. So between sick time, minimum we have is 5 all around. So there's always 2 up here.
So that's what I thought. There was 2, right?
They share what we call 840 and 850 zone. So West Lincoln and Smithville.
So the platoon would be for all of District 8, though. So that's spread out among Grimsby. Do you have Lincoln also?
No,
as part
5.
5?
Generally 2 up on the mountain is the term we use, and then 3 below.
On each platoon?
Yes, at minimum.
Because West Lincoln is the largest of all the municipalities in the region of Niagara. From Victoria Avenue, all the way to Westbrook takes you 15 minutes, 20 minutes if you get a call. And usually when you get the call, the cruiser's at the other end. It usually always happens that way. But with 2 of them, it at least reduces the chances that they would both be in the same area at the same time.
Yes.
So, which would help us because it's so large. By the time you come, the guys have already packed their suitcases and whatever they've taken, they're already to Florida. So the quicker you can get there, the better. Staff Sergeant mentioned, Sarah, you mentioned that you've hired 4 more for District 8?
So we haven't hired 4 more. Our authorized strength has gone up. So our recruiting unit is in the process of hiring more officers. But we can only get officers on the road as fast as we can hire them and get them through the police college. So we have got the authorized strength, so we're just waiting to, because I believe that the region authorized strength has gone up by 10. So we're aiming to fill those vacancies.
Through the mayor, how many platoons do you have at Grimsby? You got
4.
4? Okay, so that would allow you 1 extra one per
Yeah.
platoon, which could possibly free an opportunity to have 1 more above the escarpment or the mountain,
Yes.
as the sergeant mentioned.
Yeah.
Okay, so there is the possibility we could have increased surveillance out here, which is the biggest thing out here because we're so wide open. And at night, it is very dark. Unless it's well lit, you can pretty well do whatever you want here. No one ever see it. Which brings up a lot of drinking in the country. And I don't know if that relates to accidents out in the country. Like Warner is a very bad corner, a very bad area that has a lot of accidents. But there is a lot of drinking out in Caister, and I don't know if you guys check, but you only have to look in the ditches to see how busy it is. And I've never seen any enforcement with regards to that, because I think it's sometimes, if they have a chance where they're just doing book work, to park the cruiser anywhere out in that area and just wait for headlights to come along. There is the possibility in the weekends that you will find these people, because there's evidence in the ditch every Monday. Seems to be a lot more than the rest of the week put together, but in the weekends there seems to be an awful lot of cans in the ditches, which leads us to believe that that's the cause. Mind you, it has been reduced since the beer store closed in Smithville.
Okay, Councillor.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so once it was made public that you were coming, I received actually 2 different things as well. Not complaints, not really looking necessarily for more officers, although everybody would always like that, we know that. But when there is somebody parked somewhere in West Lincoln, there are 2 different places that were brought to my attention, and I promised to pass it on when you were here. So the first is the new traffic control on Highway 20. where the region has put in a new pedestrian crossover. Because it's new, people in town are now pretty used to the fact that it's there, but there's a lot of traffic coming through that are used to it being a straight run from the traffic circle all the way through. So when somebody's doing bookwork, as the councillor referred to, or just doing reports or whatever, that would be an ideal place to situate somebody within that area, and even if it just serves as a reminder. And the other place where we are getting major concerns going on is on Town Line Road in Smithville. And again, the gentleman that wrote to me about that had several issues, but he was talking about racing on the street and failing to stop, and four-wheelers running up and down the road with underage teens, and that kind of thing. So once again, that would be a worthwhile place if you are going to have somebody sitting for a period of time to take a break, do their bookwork, do whatever. Those are both two places that were brought to my attention just recently, knowing that you were coming. So
I appreciate that, and those are the types of things that we appreciate. In our briefings every day, we talk about areas of concern and where if there's traffic concerns or an increase of break and enters or thefts or things like that. So that's a perfect opportunity for us to let our officers know during briefing that these issues are there. So we'll definitely pass that along to the shifts.
Well, just the weekend before my meeting with the new chief, with Chief Forty, actually I was prepared, because I'd heard from several people, to talk about the fact that ideally when the officer who's here is situated by the fire hall, obviously there's access to a washroom and whatever, and that's fine. But the night that we came home from a meeting on the Tuesday evening, when I was in preparation for that meeting on Thursday, the officer was actually sitting by the stoplights downtown, just inside, which was a very visible place. So whether you were going to think about ever running that stoplight or turning inappropriately or speeding towards it or away from it or anything else going on, it was just very visible to have the car sitting there, which when they later heard from these other residents made me think that maybe it's about placement as well as much as anything else. A visible location in an area that could be problematic. And I know that our staff have often asked for the police to sit at the community center, for example, for a period of time, just to ensure that police presence is there. We know that we can't have lots, but we can place it appropriately, perhaps. So thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Any further questions from anybody before we thank? Okay, so thank you very much for your presentation tonight.
Appreciate it.
And 7.3 is Katie McNair from Water Resources Matrix Solutions, and she's a water resources engineer. And I think she's just online, right?
I'm here, yeah. Can you hear me?
Okay, so we can hear you, Katie.
Okay. So can I share my slides?
Yeah, I think Kevin's got that. Okay, I think you're good to go. And we can see it. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Yeah.
I wasn't speeding to get you, by the way.
Oh, I don't know. You were just online a few minutes ago. Thanks for coming in.
So hello, everyone, and
Hands free
thank
on your
you, Ray and
phone,
Mike, for inviting us to present. Sorry, am I good to start?
Yes, you are. Go ahead.
Okay, just making sure. My name is Katie McNair. I'm a water resources engineer with Matrix Solutions, and I'm joined online by my colleague Adam Spargo, who's a water resources specialist. So last fall, our company completed assessments of the township's stormwater management ponds, and today we'll be presenting those findings. So I'll just run through briefly what a stormwater management pond is, the design and approvals around them, the assessment program that we completed for the ponds, our results and recommendations, and at the end we'll just touch on the oil grit separator assessment that we did as well. So stormwater management pond is likely something that many of you have seen around. They're often in residential and commercial areas, and they're designed to improve stormwater quality, and they also control the quantity of stormwater in a developed area. There are two types of stormwater facilities. The first is a dry facility, and this provides quantity control function. Oftentimes, this is what you'll see in a park. If there's a large depression of soccer field, this area can also act as a dry stormwater management pond, and it will fill up during a rainfall event. But the majority of the township's facilities that we're making recommendations for are wet ponds, and so I'm going to focus on this for our explanation. So a wet pond, as shown in the photo on the bottom right of the slide, has a permanent level of water sitting in it, and this is referred to as the permanent pool. The volume of water improves the water quality by removing sediment from the stormwater as it enters the pond. The volume of the permanent pool is determined based on a target removal efficiency. And as time passes, that permanent pool will fill up with sediment that has been removed from the incoming stormwater. The second function of a wet pond is to provide water quantity and erosion control. The available space above the permanent pool, again, as you can see in the photo on the right, is to hold water and release it at a controlled rate through an outlet control structure. This pond function reduces downstream flooding and erosion. And the most important takeaway from this is that stormwater ponds are infrastructure that needs to be maintained. Stormwater ponds are designed to guidelines set by the Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks, or MECP. All approval for stormwater ponds now falls under the township's Consolidated Linear Infrastructure ECA, which is managed by the township. And as part of this new CLI ECA process, there are requirements to monitor and maintain stormwater ponds. And township staff proactively reached out to us to initiate a pond assessment program to meet this requirement. So last fall, we completed assessments of all of the stormwater management ponds for the township. We assessed the condition of the infrastructure, so we check if the ponds are functioning as they were designed to be. Common problems we see are blocked outlets, higher permanent water levels than what the pond should have, and we also note any invasive species that we see at the ponds. We take a small boat out into the facility and we measure the depth of the sediment that has accumulated. And then back in the office, we'll prepare drawings and we can determine the volume of permanent pool that has been filled with sediment. The MECP's guideline for sediment removal is when 30% of the permanent pool is filled with sediment. The field program that we completed included assessing 8 ponds and 4 OGS units. Of those 8 ponds, we identified 5 needing immediate attention and 1 facility that should be cleaned out in 2028. And I'll go through each pond now. Our estimated cost for design and construction of the clean out and maintenance work for the 6 ponds is $2.6 million. So the first is the Hornack Sun Pond. We measured more than 1,000 cubic meters of sediment to remove from the pond. We weren't able to locate and assess the outlet structure during our inspection since it was surrounded with vegetation. But based on the fact that the water level in the pond was a bit higher than it was designed to be, so as you can see here, this blue line is the design water level, and then the green line indicates where we measured the water to be sitting on the day of the inspection. This suggests that there is some sort of blockage, partial blockage of the outlet structure, and so we would also recommend taking out the outlet structure and replace the stone that sits around the outlet structure to prevent it from accumulating sediment inside. The next pond is the Townline Pond. We measured approximately 600 cubic meters of sediment to be removed. The permanent water level here was also higher than it's designed to be, so we would recommend clearing the outlet of sediment and vegetation and replacing the stone around the outlet structure. At the Adamson Pond, we measured almost 440 cubic meters of sediment, and we didn't note any major maintenance requirements of this facility. The Oakdale Swim Pond, we measured 1,413 cubic meters of sediment for removal, and we also recommend removing sediment and vegetation from the outlet head wall structure. The Streamside Pond, we measured almost 1,700 cubic meters of sediment. For for removal. And then the other item we noted here, as you can see in this profile, this red line is just the original design bottom for the pond. And the pink line here is the bottom of the pond that we measured. So we also recommend over excavating the pond during the clean out. And this will allow this cell of the pond to provide the proper function that was intended from the design. And then the last pond is the Sheridan Pond. We measured 883 cubic meters of sediment for removal, and we didn't identify any other maintenance items for consideration at this pond. This first cell of the pond, called the Fort Bay, is quite full, but there's still a lot of capacity for sediment in the remainder of the pond. And since there are other ponds to clean out in the meantime, we recommend cleaning out the other ponds ahead of this one and leaving this as the last priority. For the pond assessment, we also reviewed the condition of the facilities. So for 5 of the ponds I just mentioned for clean out, we also identified minor condition issues and recommended maintenance. Some of the maintenance items include removing vegetation and trees that are blocking some of the inlets and outlets to the ponds, removing Phragmites, which is an invasive plant species common to stormwater ponds, and we noted that one of the ponds was missing in gate walk. We also made some recommendations for the Riverview Estates pond. This facility doesn't have any cleanout needs in the next 10 years, but we did identify minor pond improvements, and we believe township staff would be able to address these on their own. So the prioritization for cleanout is presented here in the order that I spoke about the facilities, and that's done based on the permanent pool's percentage full with sediment. And then I've also listed out here the items for the Riverview Estates pond that we believe township staff could complete. So that's repairing an inlet grate, removing vegetation in the pond block, locating and exposing a buried manhole cover, installing warning signage, and addressing a public encroachment issue. And then just some pond maintenance recommendations moving forward. We generally recommend annual inspections of facilities by township staff. This ensures that the facilities are functioning properly, and it allows issues to be identified early if there are some. And then our standard recommendation for the pond sediment survey program, so what we completed last year, is every 10 years since the last cleanout or the survey program. And then from that survey program, we are able to generate an annual sediment loading rate. So this is how much sediment on average we see increase in the pond each year. And using that, we're able to determine an estimate of what the cleanout year will be in the future for the pond. And then the last thing I just wanted to touch on was we also completed inspections of 4 OGS units, or oil grit separators. These units function to settle sediment, screen debris, and they separate oils from stormwater. They're located along the storm sewer, and they have a lid commonly in the roadway that might just look like a manhole lid as well. So we inspected 4 OGS units, and we identified one at the community center that has substantial sediment accumulation, and we would recommend clean out for that now. And then the 3 other units had little to no sediment, and there were no condition issues observed. So we would recommend an annual inspection program moving forward to inspect all of these units. And that's my presentation. So thank you, and we're happy to take any questions that you have.
Okay, thank you, Katie, for that very thorough report. Adam, did you want to add anything before we go to questions?
No, I think that was great. I'll help out if there's any questions that come up.
Okay, thank you. So are there any questions from members of council? Okay, seeing none, I think this will come up in our report later on, so perhaps that may be when questions come up. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. So regional council's remarks are next. Councillor Woodavine, you were here and then you were gone. Do you have remarks this evening? Okay, thank you. So that takes us to number 9, which is a confirmation of minutes, and Councillor Chichok, you have the resolution. So the council, which is our all-committee meeting from July 15th. Did you lose it? Do you want it?
Hang on a second, I lost it.
You got it now? Aha. Use the paper one. Bottom of page 2 and up on page 3.
Pardon me, moved by myself that the minutes relating to the open session portion of the July 15th, 2024 council, including all committees, meeting and the recommendations contained therein be accepted, and that the confidential minutes relating to the closed session portion of the July 15th council and all committee meeting be accepted, and that the minutes remain confidential and restricted from public disclosure in accordance with exemptions provided in Section 239 of the Municipal Act.
Thank you. And someone to second that, please? Councillor Trombetta. Thanks for coming in. It's much easier to see your face in your hand than to do this hearing. So we're glad that you're here. Are there any questions or comments about the open session of those minutes? Okay, seeing none, Mr. Clerk?
Pardon me. Moving right along. Croaky the frog.
Mine didn't come up.
Did you need something?
Oh, didn't come up. I wonder. Okay, well,
Welcome to the club.
yeah, I will change it again. Okay, so I vote in favor, and we'll go from there. Okay, I might need to shut down and start again. Councillor Rayner, are you voting in favor of those minutes?
Yes, mine screen doesn't show up.
Okay, thank you. And so that resolution carries. 9.2 is the public meeting under the Planning Act, the minutes of July 15th, 2024. And Councillor Braddock, you have that resolution.
Yes, I do, Madam Mayor. Moved by myself that the minutes of the public meetings held on July 15th, 2024, under Section 34 of the Planning Act with respect to 1, Township of West Lincoln zoning bylaw 2017-70, housekeeping amendments number 8, and 2, 4961 Camborough Street, Darren Foister, agent, Yana and Frank Bulk, temporary use bylaw be accepted.
Okay, thank you. And someone to second that? Councillor Chichok, thank you. Any questions or comments about those minutes? Okay, seeing none. I might have to sign out and come back in. Oh, it came up this time. Okay, great. And that resolution also carries. There are no communications, but I do have some mayor's remarks this evening. So since my last mayor's remarks at the July 15th All Committees Council meeting, I've been encouraged by the number of nominations that have been coming in for our Community Recognition Awards. We're just past the halfway point in the nomination period, so I would like to take this opportunity to remind council members and residents that now is the time to submit a nomination for someone that you know is currently making a difference or has in the past made a difference to the well-being of others in our community. Self or family member nominations are not only accepted, they're encouraged, as the details regarding past long-time involvement in the community might otherwise remain unknown. 5 independent judges have once again been secured for our 2024 awards. So to West Lincoln residents, I say, get nominating those known to you. Please put in as much detail as possible regarding the various contributions of the nominees. On Friday, July 19th, John and I attended dinner at the dairy at the Youngblood Farm on Range Road 1. We were extremely impressed with how well it was organized, as they managed to move several hundreds of people through an information-based tour of their efficient robotic milking farm operation. Information that was suitable and engaging for adults and children alike. Additionally, they managed to feed everyone burgers or hot dogs, drinks of water, white or chocolate milk with ice cream treats for dessert. Thanks to the host family and the huge number of volunteers who made this event run so very well. It was an amazing family event. I was able to attend 2 different regional council meetings on Thursday, July 25th via Zoom while on vacation in New Hampshire. I want to take this opportunity to point out the significance of having a second regional councillor from West Lincoln, in addition to the mayor, available for all regional meetings. Councillor Witteveen and I are able to always ensure a West Lincoln presence at the region, whether only one of us or both of us are available for any given meeting. I was pleased to represent West Lincoln at the opening ceremonies of the Big Brother, Big Sister, Big Start Back to School campaign kickoff on Thursday, August 1st. A presence at this campaign kickoff was important, as this region-wide organization services families in West Lincoln, as well as in the other municipalities in the region. And we certainly want to be included in their partnering of adults with youth in need of the support that Big Brothers and Big Sisters has to offer. West Lincoln councillors who were able to do so attended the Chamber of Commerce Mayor's Luncheon event on May 31st. As a result of that event, I'm pleased to say that the Executive Director, on behalf of the West Lincoln Chamber of Commerce, was able to present a check to McNally House Hospice last Thursday, August 8th. It was my honor to be in attendance at that check presentation. I'm hopeful that the social media publicity surrounding this particular donation will help residents in our 3 catchment area communities realize that all donations, no matter the size, are very much needed to ensure that this free, compassionate care service provided by McNally House continues to grow to match community needs. And finally, an update on the AMO, or the Association of Municipalities of Ontario Conference, which begins this upcoming Sunday, August 18th, and runs until noon Wednesday, August 21st in Ottawa. Getting ready for AMO is always a long process that requires a great deal of preparatory work without actually knowing whether or not we will be granted a delegation time slot. It's worth noting that Roma in January and AMO in August of each year are the 2 opportunities for individual municipalities to meet face-to-face with provincial elected officials, that being either provincial ministers or their parliamentary assistants, to discuss issues directly affecting the municipality. We submitted in a timely manner all necessary documentation for each step of the way during the past 2 to 3 months, and we now know, as of the last 2 weeks, that we have been granted all 3 of our delegation requests. We will have the opportunity to speak with the Parliamentary Assistant to the Minister of Infrastructure regarding our asset management funding needs, to the Parliamentary Assistant to the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing regarding our immediate needs for water, wastewater infrastructure so as to get housing starts underway in West Lincoln. And additionally, we will meet with the new Minister of Tourism, Culture and Gaming regarding a request to increase the library funding, which has not changed in close to 25 years, and to also ask for the Public Libraries Act 1990 to be reviewed and updated. So delegation packages, so that I don't forget, for our attendees, CAO McBride, Regional Councillor Witteveen, Councillors Bradwick, Chichok, and Riley are ready for perusal and any personal preparation notes at the end of this evening's meeting. And they're at the end of the desk next to where Councillor Broderick is sitting, so that I didn't leave them in my office and forget to give them to each of you who are attending. And that is the end of my mayor's remarks for tonight. So we're going to go then to reports of committee, and 12.1 is Planning, Building, and Environmental Committee. And Councillor Rayner, you have that resolution, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I move by myself that recommendation report PD 35-2024, title Recommendation Report, 167 St. Catherine Street, extension of draft plan of condominium, file number 2100-86-17, dated August the 12th, 2024, we received, and that the draft plan of condominium approval for 167 St. Catherine Street, file number 2100-86-17, be extended for a period of 1 year to expire on August the 12th, 2025, subject to the revised conditions found in Schedule A, and that a notice of extension be circulated to relevant agencies and departments.
Thank you. And someone to second that resolution? Councillor Trombetta? Okay. Mr. Bormo, did you like to speak to this report? I didn't ask, so I'm putting you on the spot. I asked earlier and you weren't ready.
Yes, I will speak to this one. Good evening, members of council. The owner and planning consultant of 167 St. Catherine Street has requested an extension to their draft plan of condominium, originally approved back in 2018. The condominium is located on St. Catherine Street in Smithville, on the north side of St. Catherine Street, just west of Union Cemetery. In 2018, Township Council approved this draft plan of condominium for 20 townhouse units on a private street. And since that time, the property has been purchased by the current owners, Brantwood Homes, with Mr. Seropoulos as the owner and now Mr. Campbell as the planning consultant. Under the Planning Act, municipalities are permitted to tie conditions to draft plan of subdivision and condominium approval, including a time frame for which these conditions must be fulfilled. And if the conditions are not approved within the specified time frame, the applicants can request an extension, or if an extension is not granted, that approval will lapse. The last extension granted on 167 St. Catherine Street was last year. The extension was granted to May of 2024. The applicants provided a written request to township staff to extend this, and the Director of Planning and Building, with his delegated approval authority, granted a 3-month extension, which brings us to August 25th of this month. The applicants have provided, in the meantime, more justification as to their reasoning around extending this approval, including a written letter which was attached to the report, outlining some of the reasons why the development has not proceeded and why a further extension is required. And Mr. Campbell spoke to some of those in his delegation. Planning staff have also reviewed this application request and approval, and note that the application still conforms to current planning policy, and that planning staff can still recommend a 1-year extension of this approval, and have also suggested a number of modifications to the original conditions of approval, which can also be found within this report. This extension request was also circulated to the Conservation Authority, the region, other departments and agencies, who have also provided some comments, mainly around also changes to some of the conditions. Planning staff have also inserted one additional condition, and that is around servicing allocation. And this condition is inserted to ensure that the owners are aware that water and sewer servicing allocation is not guaranteed, and that if other developments were to proceed in advance of this development at a quicker pace, that servicing allocation could be granted to those other developments if this application is not moving. That's all I have to say this evening, but if there's any questions, I'm here to assist with those.
Okay, thank you very much for that. So are there any questions? Councillor Rayner, a question to Mr. Borma.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through to Mr. Guerra. How many times have they applied for this?
Through the mayor to Councillor Rayner, I believe this is the third or the fourth extension request on this development. So the first approval was given 3 years, and then the subsequent approvals were given 1 year extensions.
Through you also, and you recommended that we extend it again. I'm just wondering how long this is going to continue. It doesn't give you a lot of confidence if this is now going on our 6th year and there isn't any progress. Is there a time that we should just kind of give up and say, when you're serious, come on back, because you're really tying up our time? Because really all the other extensions have really wasted our time because they've done nothing. And now we're back here again, doing it again. Like the old record from Hermit's Hermit, second verse, same as the first, and here we are doing it all over again. So just how long is the planning department willing to keep accepting these extensions before they say, I think maybe we should just, if you're serious, come on back and we'll start from scratch. And maybe starting from scratch would be a better incentive to say, hey, you better get going because it's going to cost you a heck of a lot more, as Mr. Campbell said, if they have to start from scratch. So why are you not dealing with it, knowing that you're putting yourself in a very precarious situation? Because one of these days, council might just say no. So why are you dragging yourself, knowing it costs you a lot more?
Okay, Councillor, so your question is, have they considered that?
Are you comfortable with this 1-year extension? And is there any way we can say this is the last one and then not bring it back next August and say this is it?
Okay.
This is the last time. We've been more than patient. You either get off the you-know-what or...
So the question requires an answer. So the question, I think, is, are you comfortable? was where it came from.
And can we say this is the final time we're doing this? This will not come back to council next year. You either go ahead with it or you're not serious, because we've been more than patient.
Okay. So, Mr. Borma, do you have an answer for that?
Yes, and I think the director may also have some response. So I think from our planning department's perspective, it is frustrating to see these developments continuing to ask for extensions. However, from a planning perspective, I think the main purpose of the requirement for these extensions is to ensure that the development still conforms to what the current planning policies are saying. So strictly from staff's review of this application every year and every extension request against the planning policy, it still meets the minimum densities that like the province requires. It still meets the township zoning for the layout of the proposed units. Still meets our official plan policy. So from that perspective, staff are recommending that this extension be granted. And every extension, we look at these conditions again to ensure that they are adequately reflecting what the policies are today. And that is why we added that one condition, to ensure that if this development is not moving forward, that is not holding up precious water and sewer capacity that other developments may need. So that's I guess the assurance that staff have here, that even though if this does get a 1-year extension, it's not going to hold up other developments if they're not moving forward.
One further question.
Thank you. Well, I think that the director wanted to weigh in on your question as well.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll be very brief. Just in addition to what Mr. Bourma said, there was reference in Mr. Bourma's presentation to the fact that the date of expiry was actually back in May, and staff granted a 3-month, I should say, extension. That was with intensive discussion with the developer to basically say, try and figure this out, because we really don't want to go back to council. We want houses. And I'm hearing a more positive message than I think we've heard before from this developer, so I'm hoping that's good news. The other discussion I just wanted to put on the table was to say that we have had discussions with them to basically say, if this is a low-density development, and those are the ones that are not moving, and we should be looking at something different, then let's start having that discussion. If there's something that will move further or better on this property in terms of a housing style, let's have that discussion. It hasn't happened yet, but I put that on the table just in case there's something better that will move, and we're open to that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, through to Mr. Treble. Mr. Treble, every time this comes up, it's taking staff time to review this again, to see if it again falls within the parameters and the guidelines of the Planning Act. Is there any additional charges that the individual has to incur? Because if this would have proceeded earlier, it would have been done when it was done. And every year when you have this come in front of you, you have to spend time, staff has to spend time to review this. So is there a compensation to the planning department for having to continually review something that's been reviewed already 4 or 5 times?
Through you, Madam Mayor, yeah, there is an application fee to the township and to the region as well with respect to the extension, and both of those have been paid in this instance, which are meant to cover staff's time for the review.
Okay, thank you. The only other comment I have that really bothers me is Mr. Campbell in his presentation said that they're motivated by the reduction in the interest rates, but the interest rates are very slow coming from the Bank of Canada, and I don't know how long they're going to anticipate what magic number they're waiting for it to go down to, but if they're waiting on that to go down, they're going to lose this year. So, I mean, I can see that if they're waiting for this is not going to turn out for next year anyways. So there's got to be some other motivating factor than just holding on, hoping the interest rates are going to drop, or this is going to sit idle for another 12 months. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Chichok, you had your hand up.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I echo most of the comments that were made by my colleague, but I do believe that this has been before us a number of times, and the proponent has been told this would be the last time by someone who no longer sits across the table from us, and an earlier council that I was able to share this horseshoe with. Councillor Bell wanted to make sure this moved ahead. And so I don't think that the fear of this being the very last time is something that motivates this particular developer, or maybe all of them, because the market is truly where they get their sense of urgency to move forward. So through you, Madam Mayor, my other comments are that it's good to hear that they're being encouraged to look at other types of development, because it's not our job to find them partners or purchasers for their property. If they don't want to go ahead, the other thing that's heartening is that we are being told they're to understand that water allocation is no longer a guarantee. And if I might, Madam Mayor, through you to the appropriate staff member, how many units is this? I was trying to find it again, and I've forgotten.
Mr.
Is
Burma.
it 34? No.
It's 20 units.
20. It was 20, okay. So with 20 units, if increased density were to favor lower prices and quicker uptake in a market that is looking for those kinds of things, rather than wasting the year trying to find a market that may not be there, these people should be with a planning consultant and with an owner. Because last year, if I remember correctly, this presenter this evening was trying to finish development in London, and was then going to turn their mind to here. So, Madam Mayor, I support the actions that have taken place, and I truly would not support more than a year, at least to have this group come back with an alternate plan.
Thank you. Councillor Trombetta.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I agree with the two councillors. One more year, and I think we need to stop this. I think, us councillors are really, and people that have been sitting around this horseshoe for a long, extending this, then, and there could be a possibility that there's only 20 units, according to Garrett, that there's only 20 units, but they can apply to change the zoning, and then all of a sudden we're facing a condo going in this area because we have intensifications in this province. And then we're battling the residents because of new condos going up where there could have been nice 20 homes going in there 6 years ago. Again, we're really sticking our necks out as councillors sometimes, extending. We have to just, one more year, I guess, and that's got to be final, because again, this happened to us at another development where they wanted to come in and change the zoning on us, Brian, in town, and we had to, the gallery was full, Madam Mayor, you know exactly where that was, and you weren't mayor at the time, but this was last year, or 2 years, not last year, a couple years ago.
I think I was planning chair.
You were planning chair. So this kind of, again, these things happen, and then again, we extend it, and the longer we extend it, the developer makes more money, and it can change the development scope that's there, and us councillors are looking like, fighting, I don't know the words I'm going to use, but I want to use some different words, but we're looking not as good as the 20 units that should have went in there, Madam Mayor. So I think no more, this has got to be the final straw for this thing, because it's been extended too long.
Thank you. No further words,
No,
Councillor?
really any questions. I think I agree. I think that the current economic situation in Ontario and the fact that housing starts are drastically down across the province would indicate that we should support the staff report and allow for that flexibility, in hopes that within that 1 year that there will be a plan for action on that property where my children used to toboggan down that little hill.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Clerk, I think we're ready for you. Okay, so that resolution carries, but I think probably, Mr. Campbell, you have some words to take back based on what you've heard from members of council. So thank you very much for your earlier presentation. And Garrett, are you going to speak to the next item as well, or no? Do you feel that that's because you are on as well for the next item? So we'll get the resolution on the floor first. So okay, so Councillor Trombetta, you have that.
Thanks, Madam Mayor.
And this is the recommendation report, PD 34-24.
Moved by myself, the recommendation report PD 3424 titled Recommendation Report Application for Zoning Bylaw Amendment, Temporary Use Bylaw, Frank and Jana Bulk, Darren Forsett, Garden Suite application, file number 1601-006-24, dated August 12th, 2024, be received. And that no further public meeting is required for the consideration of this bylaw in accordance with Section 3417 of the Planning Act, and that a bylaw 2024-54, as found in Schedule E, be approved with site-specific regulations.
Okay, so thank you. Someone to second that. Councillor Chichok, thank you. Okay, so I don't know, Mr. Barmer, whether you feel like you need to. I just didn't want you to get settled down in another chair. I don't know whether you wish to speak to this or not. Or just be there to answer any questions if there are any.
Yeah, I can speak to it very briefly. This is a garden suite application that came to a public meeting last month. There were no oral or written submissions from any of the neighbors. This garden suite is located in Wellandport. It meets all of the zoning regulations, and as per our zoning bylaw, they are required to obtain a temporary use bylaw approval from council, which is what they are seeking. And it's a two-step process in West Lincoln where they obtain the temporary use bylaw as well as enter into a temporary use agreement with the township to regulate things like servicing. This is a privately serviced lot, so they have provided a private septic system and potable water. Staff have completed their review and have no issues with their application and can recommend to committee and council that this application be approved.
Okay, thank you so much. Are there any questions for Mr. Barma regarding this? I know that people have been on vacation and some have been on Zoom and around, so I appreciate your overview of that. I think if I don't see any more questions, Mr. Clerk, we're ready to move on. So the vote's in front of you. And that carries. Thank you. That takes us to number 3, Director of Planning and Building Brian Treble, read the recommendation report PD-36-2024, additional background information, service level agreement planning with the region of Niagara. And I don't have a mover to put it on the floor. Councillor Bradrick, thank you.
You're welcome, Madam Mayor. Moved by myself. 1, that recommendation report PD-36-2024, titled Recommendation Report, Additional Background Information, Service Level Agreement Planning with the region of Niagara, dated August 12, 2024, be received. And 2, that Council receives and supports the proposal to pay for backup professional planning expertise from regional planning after the date of proclamation, date when region is no longer a planning approval authority, for a term not exceeding 2 years. And 3, that the CAO be authorized to negotiate the services for which such agreement shall be required, and to then sign the agreement on behalf of the township following the date of the provincial proclamation of the amendments to the Planning Act related to upper tier municipal planning responsibilities for a 2-year term. And 4, that Council directs administration staff to develop and recommend to Council a service delivery model to support local delivery of planning services currently supported by Region of Niagara by the end of 2025.
Thank you. And someone to second that resolution, please. Councillor Chichok. Thank you. Is there anyone who wishes to speak to that? Councillor Chichok, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I put it on the table so that we could have some discussion about this, and I know I spoke very intensely about it when it came before us last November. I appreciate the work that staff have put into this, both at the region and here, and I have really not got anything that I have against the region of Niagara. They are doing the work that they have thought would be best for our municipality, as well as the other 11 in this region. But we also have to think about what will be best for West Lincoln. And we have just recently been taken, we did not get a grant because we are a uniqueness. We are out in the boonies and we need all kinds of servicing, and we did not get any of the allocation of monies that would get us moving on our development. So I'm truly troubled by the fact that a number of developers feel that we are holding up development. Others will point fingers at the region, and there's here and there and back. And the province is saying to us, well, we're going to clean that all up. We're taking it away. It's all going to go to one place. So I do believe that if we want it to succeed, we need to work together with the region. But we do not know when the new proclamation is going to happen. There may be no need for us to do anything but to have the environmental work done by the region. Our experts or our staff are telling us that it might be $100 for some people, $150, but there's no absolute to confirm costs will be more or less. That's the per hour rate. If the region, like many other places, is going to be losing planners because of the changes in the legislation and the upper tiers being eviscerated or taken out of their current requirements, they may lose people. So the benefit of staying with the region, where we have housed all of the information about the work on our developments to date, may no longer be there. It may not be the same people. So we have to look at all of the issues that are there, and we have to look at what the impacts are to us. Today, the region has a budget to support the planning department that they have and had. But with numbers of people perhaps moving to different departments, that tax room is staying with the region. Now we're being told that there might be, by our staff, not by the regions, there might be costs of $100 to $150 or more for work to be done there, but not a standard of care. This isn't driving your automobile into a dealership and saying, I want to change the brakes or the fuel pump, and them telling you that'll take 2.4 hours at a rate of this, and you come out with that. This is complex information sharing, and again, who is in charge? And are we going to be number one on the region's list, given that some municipalities have opted out completely, others have said they'll stay in for some services, and others have said they'll stay in for all. I guess with the information that I have been given by our own staff, it is troublesome for us to go into an agreement without looking at the cost containment for West Lincoln. And our normal policy would be to procure 3 quotes or an RFP to get qualifications and costs considered as we move forward in a new world. Last month, we were told or given a copy of the Canadian Urban Institute's report on thinking out of the box, on thinking about how we all got on the same train, about how we can really truly accomplish things more readily to address the need for more housing. So because of those factors, I seconded this motion to put it on the table, and I say that the first one is that we keep it the same, which is to receive the report. The second one would be that Council receives the report for a term not to exceed 1 year rather than 2. My third ask is that recommendation 3 be that the CAO is authorized to negotiate and then bring the negotiated agreement back to Council for information so that additional direction as determined by Council for 1, not 2 year would be there. And I say that because there could be, we just got $2.8 million in stormwater that has to be done in the next couple of years. This needs to have examination as to what the financial impact would be, and I cannot cavalierly suggest that we can know this at the end of December 2025 and not know the implications to the taxpayers in our budget at that date where we are going to be well started into our programming. So I think we need to look at this and send benchmarks with our CAO back to the table to understand what we really need, what the kind of costs we are going to incur, so that we can plan before we start the 2025 budget and have the services provided by the region that are acceptable to us, and we use the next I have to count that again, hold on, 4 and 8, 12, we use the next 10 months to the end of June 2025 to understand how the services are being addressed at the region, what our needs are, the costs that are coming through, so that we can plan, accept, and then provide direction to council, right, we should, to our staff on how to proceed. So my final recommendation would be that recommendation number 4 does not say by the end of 2025, but by the end of June, meaning before we break for the summer of next year, we have some understanding of how the process has worked. If proclamation happens. If, because that's the caveat on all of this, once proclamation happens, which may not happen till next April. So I say this with an abundance of caution, knowing full well that we have faced huge turnover here at the town and the region the same. So I ask that we look at this harmoniously with the region, trying to come to a solution for West Lincoln. I really don't care about the rest of them because they're all doing their own thing. I care about this community, and that's why I'm here today to say, let's go forward cautiously so that we know and we don't get a surprise of $2.8 million for stormwater management funds and for planning hitting us in 2025-26.
Thank you. Councillor Trombetta.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As my colleague across the table says, as I echo my colleague's comments across the table, she makes some valid points. Just reading this motion, I can't support this motion. You know, especially what's written in number 2 here, that council receives and supports the proposal to pay for backup professional planning expertise from regional planning after the date of proclamation. You know, with a comment like that, we're committed. There's no price, there's no cost that we're assuming that we're gonna have to pay. So for me to accept something like that now at this council meeting, I cannot, Madam Mayor. I think this needs a little bit more finesse, to more information brought back to this council before I can, especially because I don't know what, especially at the end of 2025 going into, as Councillor Chichak mentioned, you know, we're going into an election year as 2026, and I'm going to be committing to this evening to pay back for professional planning. I can't do that, Madam Mayor. Again, without some numbers here, I think this needs to go back. I think there needs to be some fine tuning, and this needs to be brought back to council. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Trombetta? No?
I agree with Councillor Chichuk that I think the 2-year term is too long, and I'm not sure if an escape clause can be negotiated as well. That would give us some power behind if the landscape changes, because we certainly don't really know. I'm not sure if the provincial government even knows what might happen a month, 6 months, or a year from now. So to hold us into an agreement for 2 years, it would be really hard to predict what those parameters should look like.
Okay, thank you. Nothing further? Do you want to weigh in? Okay, so I'm going to call on our CAO to weigh in, please.
Thank you, Mayor Gannon. Through you, what administration is looking for at the moment, and I think the concerns that council's mentioned of needing some more information to look at this and various options, and potentially there's an RFP that could be issued to get those numbers back and give council, I think, the information that we hear is being requested. The challenge that we're up against right now is just the date and the calendar and the risk of the proclamation being made at the end of September and not having a relationship with an external agency that can do our planning, or a consulting firm that can take over that planning should the proclamation be issued. So the wording here was trying to get us into somewhat of a bridging relationship so that a report could be brought back to council to give you that information that is being asked for tonight on those numbers, and maybe some different options on how we could approach this and what that would look like if we chose to deliver these services locally. What Councillor Chichuk had said, and I believe, is that, you know, I think we were hearing is that we understand there's a need to have some sort of relationship to build, to take planning services forward until we can find the solution that fits correctly for West Lincoln. And if we did back up that to a report coming back by June, Potentially, that would give council a little bit more comfort, potentially, in knowing that we are expediting the review of external consulting or different kinds of relationships that West Lincoln could enter into, including staffing up internally. The risk right now with just the calendar of not having something in place, and potentially it's a 1 year with an exit after 1 year, we do need to find something that by the end of September, should that proclamation be issued, we need to know how we're delivering planning services. And that's the challenge that we're in right now, just with the calendar. But we are in council's hands. If you would like to see another report in September, we could attempt to move fast. I'm not certain, though, we could get any kind of competitive RFP process wrapped up and delivered back to council by the time the calendar runs through, and then we may have a proclamation and not have services that we could access for the planning work that needs to be done. So just some additional thoughts here. Potentially, Councillor Chichuk's path forward may work, and we could put it on an expedited timeline to get a new service delivery model in place before council.
Okay, so Councillor Chichuk, you wish to speak again?
For a second time, Your Worship, and the only reason I say that I take great heed from our CAO's comments, the issue for me is that if the proclamation doesn't happen until next May, we are muted. This is all for naught, this fear of what it is and when it is that it's coming. Secondly, I want somehow to get, we can talk about a bridging, which could happen with the region under the current understanding until the proclamation, and then for a few months after that, we need some help. But we need very, very clear information. Maybe I'm coming off a fire station that went from about 1.8 to 3, and that was not anybody's fault. It was the reality of a whole bunch of things that happened for the first time with COVID, et cetera, and a delay and prices escalating ridiculously. If we're going to do this, it can't be open-ended, it can't be left forever, and I need some benchmarks to come back here. So perhaps Councillor Trombetta's and Councillor Bradrick's support, but also tighter timelines and tighter information is what's needed. And take this report back, come back with not even what I'm suggesting, but coming back with saying, okay, by September, we will have some real numbers. Maybe not the best, but I really don't want our planning department's assumptions on what it might cost us at the region. Maybe those are low. Maybe an average rate plus benefits and holidays and all the rest of it come out to be what it is that's there. But we need things to be thought through much more carefully, and we need to be able to say by September we'll know this, and if proclamation were to come in, we know that we would buy this kind of hours. We know that we can go out and we can look at various options. But this open-ended opportunity, and I say that with the greatest of respect to all the professionals in the room, but this open-ended charge, we really don't know the per hour fee, and we don't know the hours. If it's going to take, should it be $100 for a review of a site plan, or should it be $10,000? I don't know. But whatever it is, we have to come to some certainty on what it's going to cost us. Because right now, the region puts in their tax base their cost for running a planning department, and they bear the burden of cost overrun or not. That money is staying there, and now we have to charge new tax dollars to support what it's going to cost us. So I ask that if we don't have enough information, Mr. CAO, for you to do anything comfortable, that we put this aside, as Mr. Trombetta or Councillor Trombetta has said, or that we at least narrow the margin of time, like I've suggested. And so I would prefer that we go forward with a much narrowed time, with you coming back every few months, telling us, here's where we're at, you telling us that, and or if my colleagues would like to see it referred back and come back with those timelines in it, I bear no issue with that, and I would support that.
So I'm going to ask you, just for clarification, and again, I'm going to ask our CAO, in terms of what we would need, when any members of the public are hearing this, they're going to think, well, what's going on? You have planning staff right there. Are there specific types of planning that we are going to require from the region that you can explain to us and explain to the public in terms of what we would be looking for? Because obviously we're not turning over all our files.
Thank you, Mayor Gadan. Through you, I may just ask Director Treble to backstop me here on some of those services. Just before we get into the intent, though, is for these fees not to appear on the levy. I just wanted to be clear, these would be flow-through costs that the development industry would pay back. So it wouldn't be something that would be on the general levy for the ratepayers. But I'd ask Mr. Treble to just give us a description of the services that we currently use with the region. And I know environmental planning and review is probably the most important that we're be challenged to source.
Thank you. Mr. Treble.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As the CIO has just mentioned, the environmental field is by far the biggest need that we have with respect to doing analysis of specific applications, as well as from a policy perspective, writing the reports and writing the policy sets required to deal with the variety of environmental challenges that we have to tackle as part of an application. Beyond that, there is some coordinated work provided by the region around growth management. That is another field that the staff have identified as an area that would be beneficial for us. Beyond that, though, I think, Madam Mayor, my desire would be to revisit the list that we had put together. Back in, I'm going to say, January or thereabouts of 2023, we were having meetings with the region very regularly around what we thought were the issues then, and we haven't really had a chance to revisit that list since then. But that was kind of in a hurry up. We think proclamation is tomorrow, and we were, moving fast, but not clearly knowing exactly how things should unfold. We've now got some time under our belts, which I think will help us put a tighter list together as part of any proposal.
Okay, thank you.
So as I say,
so we have
there's
time
the two.
under our belts, and we also know that there's no set date for proclamation. And so I remember when it was a very big hurry up and get things in place and try to deal with this. But we've been left hanging, obviously, in limbo as well. So thank you. Anything further from anyone? So I'm hearing that we want to not necessarily, unless Councillor Chichok, you want to just accept this with the changes you plan, or we can refer it back to staff for further refinement.
Having just heard, Madam Mayor, the director's comments, I would say that we wouldn't be happy with ourselves if we let this go through, even with my amendments. And we should send it back and bring it back in September, where the staff have had the time to give it consideration and bring it back with tighter timelines and more reporting back to council. More frequent reporting back to council.
Through the mayor to the rest of council, just to confirm what the resolution will read from Councillor Chichok, I'm assuming that you're going to put forth the motion to amend, so that this item be referred back to staff to a future Planning, Build, and Environmental Committee meeting or to a council meeting. I'll note that the planning meeting will be at September 9th, and
Always going to committee. That's where we should do our work.
Okay.
I think your point, Mr. Clerk, is that doesn't buy as much time to actually get the details. So.
Through the mayor to Councillor Chichok, I can put into a future Planning, Building, Environmental Committee meeting. I just didn't know if you had specifically wanted September as your meeting, but October would probably provide staff with more adequate amount of time to provide the information that the council is looking for.
Unless Mr. Ford is listening and wants to out us. I would think we probably have until October for sure. But through you, Madam Mayor, to the clerk, Councillor Bradrick did put that on the table. So if she's amenable to making that go back rather than this or my amendment, we could proceed with that referral back to staff.
And through the mayor to council, is this with any conditions set to the report, or is this purely going back to staff?
This is to gain more information, which is, I think, what Councillor Trombetta said, what Mr. Treble outlined, and this is what we need before we can start remedying this.
Okay.
And how much of it is going to be borne, because there is some that actually falls over to the tax roll regardless. So we just need to understand. And our developers are probably not going to want an open-ended charge card left on the table for them to have their files reviewed. They like to know certainty, which is what council's asking for right now.
So you okay? Do you want to? Oh, Mr. CAO, sorry. I'm looking the
Thank you,
opposite
Madam Mayor.
direction.
And just looking for some clarity on the detail that council's looking for. So I think what we're hearing is that we want to understand the services that would be looking to contract out, exactly what those pricings were going to be, and some comparators and potentially some quotes from the private sector as to what that would look like if we went that direction. Is that?
Initial quotes, yes. You're probably going to have to go back again if we give you direction to go forward after that presentation.
Thank you.
So I think part of, just to sort of summarize as well, while our clerk is getting all of that in writing, we know, we've just heard already tonight that we have some major expenses coming forward. We already know that 2025 is going to be a very tight budget and that we have a lot of things that we need to consider. So it probably is prudent for us to get more information at this point in time before we make a commitment moving forward. I think we recognize that we're going to need some help, where that help should come from and in what areas are something that we need to deal with, but budget season starts, so. Okay, Mr. Clerk, what have you got there?
Through the mayor to the rest of council, this is the motion I currently have, that this item be referred back to staff to a future planning, building, environmental committee meeting in order to gather more information regarding the services we need to service. That doesn't sound right. We need to service and the potential costs associated with these services from the Niagara region and private services. There's a lot of services.
Okay, Councillor Chichok is nodding her head. You're fine with that?
Yes.
Councillor Trombetta, does that sort of go along with your thinking as well? Councillor
I said I
Broderick?
wasn't, the comments I made about section 2 is what was not making me sit comfortable, Madam Mayor, so.
Okay,
Sorry, not
so
making
you're
me
more
sit
comfortable with it going back and coming back to us with more
Correct, yes.
information? Perfect, okay. Okay, so I think that Councillor Rayner will second that resolution to refer,
That'll appear in front of you now,
if you need it?
if that's okay.
Okay.
What, did you want me to read it again?
Okay, so it's in front of you, that the item be referred back to staff to a future Planning, Building, Environmental Committee meeting in order to gather more information regarding the services we need and the potential costs associated with these services from the Niagara region and private services. Is that wording sufficient, that everybody understands where it's going for now? Mr. CAO, you know where you're going? Okay, all right, so the vote's in front of you. Okay, and that resolution carries. Thank you for that discussion, everyone. Okay, item 12.2 is Director of Finance and Treasurer, and tonight we have with us our Deputy Treasurer, Caitlin Repaltz, Re-Information Report T-16-2024 titled Quarter 2 Financial Update. And Councillor Broderick, you have the resolution in front of you?
I was scanning ahead there, and I'm where I need to be. What number?
Oh. Sorry for the delay. Moved by myself that the information report T-16-2024 titled Quarter 2 Financial Update June 2024 dated August 12th, 2024 be received for information.
Thank you. And someone to second the resolution, please? Councillor Chichok. So, Caitlin, I didn't keep up with you today. Are you wishing to speak to that first?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Good evening, members of council. This information report presents the first financial update for the 2024 year, which covers from January to June. It also outlines the purchasing approvals granted by both our interim and current CAOs up to July of this year. 2024 budget amendments that have been approved so far are also summarized in this report. Finally, administration is projecting a 2024 surplus estimated at $450,000. Please keep in mind that this is contingent on all departments performing within their approved budgets. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions on the report? Seeing none. The vote is in front of you shortly. There it is.
Councilor Ringer's not here, so.
Did it come up on Mike's screen? No. It didn't come up.
He's just been giving me verbal cues, but if he's not here, it's a no.
Okay,
It just
thank
is
you.
what it is.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and that also carries. So the next item on our agenda is from our clerk, our Director of Legislative Services and Clerk, Justin Payloff, and it is to do with the by-election for the vacant Ward 3 councillor position. So we just need some, yes, Councillor Trombetta, we don't have anybody assigned, thank you.
Moved by myself that the recommendation report C-04-2024 dated August 12, 2024, titled By-Election for Vacant Ward 3 Councillor Position be received, and that council approved budget amendment BA 2024-08 authorizing a transfer of the contingency reserve up to $30,000 in order to fund the 2024 by-election, and that a bylaw be adopted to provide for the holding of the by-election on November 4th, 2024 for the vacant office of one councillor position for Ward 3 in the Township of West Lincoln for the remainder of the 2022 to 2026 term of council, and that a bylaw be adopted to provide the following advance votes to be held prior to voting day for the by-election. A, Friday, October 25th, 2024, from 6 to 9 p.m. at the West Lincoln Community Center, 177 West Street, Smithville, Ontario. B, Saturday, October 26, 2024, from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. at Legion Villa 2, 161 Mill Street, Smithville, Ontario. And that a bylaw be adopted to provide for the use of voting machines, voting recorders, optical scanning vote tabulators, or other voting devices at elections.
Thank you, Councillor. Someone to second that resolution, please? Councillor Chichok? Are there any questions or comments about that? It's pretty straightforward. Councillor Broderick, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through you to the clerk. I had a question in regards to, in comparison to the previous election, where there was another method available to our residents. I don't see that as listed in the in this recommendation. Can you please, for the public, clarify that, and I guess just give a brief understanding if why that's the case?
Good question.
Through the mayor to Councillor Bradrick. So the reason for no option of other traditional secondary voting methods such as telephone voting, mail-in voting, or internet voting was simply due to cost and use. Since this is a by-election only dealing with one specific ward, looking at the cost value that we get from the amount of voting we get from something like telephone voting or mail-in voting was not optimal, as well as electronic voting. While we did see much success with that in the general election, it is very expensive to do for a one-question ballot, and staff didn't feel that it was appropriate to ask for those funds for this specific question. We feel that the tabulators, which we've used for decades upon decades, would suffice for this specific by-election.
Thank you very much. And just a secondary question, and one of the reasons why I thought electronic voting was so valuable was the ability to allow people who have mobility issues to still vote. Is there ways around that within our capabilities to still allow people who may be housebound to still be able to vote?
Through the mayor to Councillor Bradrick, yes. Under the Act, the municipality is obligated to provide a vote or a voting method to people who have disabilities or cannot attend regular voting polls. In this specific instance, if they can't make it to an advanced poll or a regular poll, staff would be able to provide that voting procedure at their home upon request. This would have to be a request to the clerk's office, but this allowance can be made and has been made in the past. The public just has to reach out to one of the clerk's email addresses, and this can be arranged whenever it is available to that individual during those voting timeframes.
Great to know. Thank you very much. That's all.
Thank you. Any further questions? Okay, so, good. Vote in front, please. So you should have the vote in front of you. And that also carries. Okay. So welcome, Deputy Chief Hofsing. You are up for the next item. So we have a resolution. I need somebody to move it, please. Councillor Chichok. Okay. Very short one.
Oh, what?
You need to You need to read it, please.
Sorry. I understand. Oh, thank you. I couldn't get to it. I was reading it. I was looking at the report. Moved by myself, the information report from.
You need your microphone on, Joe.
Pardon me. Moved by myself that information report WLFD 10/2024 titled Monthly Update July 2024 dated August 12th be received for information.
Thank you.
That's
And-
it.
And someone to second that. Councilor Trombetta, can I ask you to second that, please? Okay, so now, are there any questions or comments for the Deputy Chief?
I was looking for my question.
Is that what you were looking for?
Yes.
If you don't, he's going to be here for the whole night for no reason.
Yeah, give him a question, please.
You got to give him a question.
How are you, Deputy Chief?
Anyway,
Kids, other family.
Doing well, thank you.
so thanks for being here in lieu of the chief, and we're sorry for the length of the evening that you've had to put in to wait for this, which may or may not be fruitful. Do you have a question,
Yeah,
Councilor
through you,
Trombetta?
Madam
Okay.
Mayor. Through you, Madam Mayor, to Deputy Chief Hofsing. I know there was a couple structure fires that's been reported in the paper. Was it one in ours or one in Grimsby? I know they said multiple. Was that all in West Lincoln, or was it just one in West Lincoln?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Trombetta. We did have on, I think it was August 1st or 2nd, the Friday of last weekend, we had a chicken barn that burned in our municipality. At the same time, I think there was a house of some type in Lincoln that was also on fire.
Now,
So,
through you, Madam Mayor, not if you can answer this, Deputy Chief, but was it due to something there, or was it one of these serial arsonists that we had roaming around in our community? Is that piping up again, or is it, I know it's a hard question for you to answer, just, you don't have to, but if you have any
yeah,
information.
through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Trombetta. We did not ascertain the cause of the fire that we attended on Friday. We did notify the Ontario Fire Marshal's office of it. They did not send an investigator to that fire. So at this point, investigations by the insurance company may be a possibility.
Okay.
But in the cases of a fire where such complete destruction of the building occurs, ascertaining the actual cause of that fire can be pretty difficult.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And one more question, was livestock as well? In that
No, the barn was empty at the
was
time. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
In fact, it had been decommissioned, right? Is that my understanding? Is that correct?
That's correct, Madam Mayor. Yes, the barn was not in service.
So thank you. So I think the quota had moved to the new barn. Okay, thank you. Any further questions or comments?
I found it, Madam
Councilor
Mayor.
Chichak, you found it. Good.
So, with regard to the new fire station, I'm glad to see that it is operational, but through you, Madam Mayor, the minor deficiencies are all post the occupancy permit. Am I correct?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Chichak. That is correct. We have taken occupancy of the fire hall and have been operating out of it, as the report says, since the end of June, beginning of July, I believe it was, middle of July. So any deficiencies that are outstanding now have been listed and are being taken care of by the contractor. Most are cosmetic in nature.
Like a nick in the paint, or through you, Madam Mayor, like
Exactly.
minor of that
Correct, yep.
nature? Okay, so we'll be looking for the wrap-up report on that, Madam Mayor. I will be, at least, to understand where we stand with that before and after the RFP is open for the demolition of the old fire hall. Thank you very much.
And we look forward to seeing the new fire hall a week Thursday, right? So, good, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so 12.3 is Public Works. Oh, sorry, we didn't vote on accepting your report after all of that, sorry. Moving onward. Okay, that also carries the acceptance of that report. And now we will go to Public Works Recreation Arena Committee, Project Manager Ray Vachon and Director of Public Works and Recreation Mike Tapala. Information Report PW-20, 2024 Stormwater Management or Swim Pond Assessments. So I need a mover for that resolution. Councilor Rayner, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Moved by myself that information report PW 20-2024 titled Stormwater Management SWM Pond Assessment dated August the 12th, 2024 be received for information.
Thank you. And someone to second that, Councillor Bradrick? Okay, so I'm going to go to Director DiPaolo to speak about that a little bit. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Mayor. So earlier tonight, on tonight's agenda, we received a presentation from Katie McNair with Matrix Solutions, Inc., regarding the stormwater management pond assessments. The presenter explained what stormwater management ponds are, how the purpose of them, how they function, provided an overview of the stormwater management pond condition assessments that they completed for the township, and basically presented the results and the recommendations of their findings. So this report just accompanies that presentation, basically to inform council that these stormwater management pond assessments are completed, and now we know basically what our capital needs are. And administration staff will look at this, will develop a plan, a proposed funding model for the required capital maintenance work once we come up with our 2025 budget and 10-year forecast. Staff are currently working on our 2025 budget process. Therefore, staff felt bringing this information report at this time was appropriate.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments regarding this? I just have one comment just about how this has fit in. Is this relatively new, Director, as part of our asset management? Is that why we have this period of time and it's the first time that this has been brought to our attention?
Well, it's as the presenters kind of explained, stormwater management ponds, they're basically part of subdivisions, right? So developers design them, they construct them, they pay for the capital cost. In the past, the Ministry of Environment, MECP, used to be the approval authority for these types of infrastructure. And they went in, every municipality is basically in the same boat. They just went in, and not a lot of municipalities maintain them. But recently, there was a change where the province has delegated or downloaded the approval authority to the municipalities.
That's what I was looking for, actually,
yeah,
is how that came to be.
Yes, and I believe back in July of 2023, staff did write a report to council just to advise you guys that there has been a change. So township staff is responsible to review the design, approve the stormwater facilities, and we have our ECA, Consolidated Lineal Infrastructure ECA permit. We're responsible to approve stormwater designs, but along with that permit, we're now responsible to come up with an operational plan and to maintain these ponds, just like we do with our water system. So this is kind of step one to make sure that we're compliant with our permit, our ECA permit, and that would be number one, to determine the condition of our ponds. And once we determine that, then just, year by year, we have to develop an operational plan, kind of just like developing an asset management plan. What do we own? What kind of condition are they in? And, what's our strategy to be sustainable?
So had we known 10 years ago or whatever that this was a responsibility, we would have had a plan in place, obviously, then.
That's correct.
So one more thing that is something the municipalities are responsible for. Thank you.
It's called the gift that keeps on giving, Madam Mayor. And just after 2000, when we had the Harris government and we had who does what, the trickle-down effect keeps coming. Whether it's the stormwater management pond or house services for planning are going to happen. It's just moving the deck chairs on the Titanic. That's why we have to be careful about how we are looking at these things, because how do we explain that to a taxpayer?
Question. Thank you. Okay, and we're ready for a vote, I believe. I'm seeing no other hands. And that also carries. So we have no reconsiderations tonight and no notice of motion to rescind, so it takes us to other business. Members of council. Councillor Bradrick, anything this evening?
Just a reminder to the community that it is our second to last music market and parket tomorrow night. I've been able to attend a couple of them, and they have been fantastic, and Staff have done a great job, so looking forward to, hopefully, the weather's cooperative tomorrow, and we get to have it outside, but there's always that backup plan, because I won't be able to attend the very last one. And that's it.
The weather on Tuesdays has proven to be not good.
Yes.
We've learned that. Okay. Councillor Trombetta, anything from you this
Just
evening?
one thing, Madam Mayor, I noticed myself, lately we've been getting these downpours of a lot of rain, and, in Abingdon, it was on the 411 Niagara that got hit, and I live in Abingdon, 60 millimeters in 40 minutes. Just a note to residents out there, check your sump pumps, check, areas in your house, especially in the rural areas. That water's coming in fast, and it's tough to keep up. So it's a little odd this year with these pop-up rainstorms that we're getting, a little more extreme than usual. So just want to put that out there. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Chichok, anything?
Only to say, Madam Mayor, that you suggested that hundreds of people were at the dinner at the dairy. There were thousands.
Well, I just said several hundred.
I just
Did you
wanted.
count?
No, I didn't.
I was just
but
amazed at how well they moved people through.
The issue for me was that it has become such an event. I remember when dinner at the dairy was a bunch of farmers getting together, looking at the cows and enjoying each other's company and spending time having a burger. But now we have visitors coming to us, and I applaud the dairy farmers of West Lincoln and Niagara, because we have people coming from Hamilton, Fort Erie. I stood talking for several hours with some of them, and they were coming from just all over the place because they heard about this and went online and got tickets when some West Lincoln people couldn't. But anyway, it was a wonderful event, and I agree with you that it was something that more and more people are getting interested in coming to. One last thing, though, Madam Mayor. The singing of O Canada tonight, aside from the blip, seemed extra special. And I know we didn't have any Olympians in our community, but we might have future ones. But tonight, having just watched the conclusion of the Paris Olympics, where Canada did, and this is the part I had to write down, where Canada did so well, scoring the most medals in a summer games at a non-boycotted Summer Olympics, is something to be proud of our young Olympians, and I applaud all of them. And tonight, O Canada seemed to do it for me. So that was it.
Thank you. Councillor Rayner, anything this evening? Okay, well, Councillor Chichok, you neglected, because I know it's still August, but the fair will be here before we have another meeting. So a reminder that the West Niagara Fair takes place on September 6th, 7th, 8th. And there'll be lots of things going on and lots of social media announcements. I just want to point out as well that we do have a flag raising on September the 6th at noon hour, and it's for childhood cancer awareness. So if you have a spot on your calendar, that's a very worthwhile thing for us to be acknowledging, I think. And we were asked a couple of months ago to do that in September. So, and we don't have a meeting before then, so there it is. We'll try to get a reminder out to you, though. Okay, so any new items of business? None that I'm aware of that people are bringing up this evening. And there are no confidential matters, and so that takes us to bylaws. And Councillor Chichok, you have the bylaws.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Moved by myself that leave be granted to introduce bylaws 2024-51, 2024-52, 2024-53, and 2024-54, and that the same shall be considered to have been read a first, second, and third time with one reading and are hereby adopted, and that the mayor and clerk be and are hereby authorized to sign and affix the corporate seal thereto, any rule of this council to the contrary notwithstanding.
Thank you. And someone to second the bylaws? Councillor Broderick, thank you. And I think we're ready for a vote. And it should be in front of you. And that concludes our business this evening, and so I will declare this meeting adjourned at the hour of 9:31. Thanks, everybody.